Hello, everybody. Signing on here early. John Emmett is in France. Ted Ryman in Cape Town in the Republic of South Africa. He's a proud papa tonight after the Golden Globe race winner. Gordon Smith in Denmark. Good evening, Gordon. Rick Bannerow, not too far away from where our guest is. Rick, nice to see you on near the Tappan Zee Bridge. Alistair Murray down under where it's early in Melbourne, Australia. Andrew Pindar, bonsoir à tout. Let's get this one off the dock, off the starting line. Welcome. Julia is back.
Yes.
The elevator is fixed. And I hope you didn't get stuck coming down either, right? It all worked well?
No, things are all fine
Are
now.
you blue and yellow for Cal Berkeley? Of course not. You went to Stanford.
Not.
How about the University of Michigan? Of course not.
Well, I do that out of.
Come on, it's the Warriors. It's the Warriors. The big basketball game tonight. They're up 3-2 in their series, our local basketball team. Welcome, everybody. Show number 613. We've got a cool show for you. Standing patiently by in Connecticut, and he's now at Mr. Mom. He's got his daughter. Look at that. How cool is that?
Yes.
Chris Poole, Riptide Racing, who just went undefeated in the Con Cup. And we'll get him on in a sec. He, as I said, is live via Skype from Westport, Connecticut, on the Gold Coast of Connecticut, there on the north side of Long Island Sound. Delighted to have Chris with us. We just met. First time we ever talked was in the Tech Check a few minutes ago. Julia, I trust you are well.
Of course.
Any hot tips? Any news?
Yes. Well, we have some good sailing going on this weekend. And
we do. We're going to have Chris stick around and talk about the Casa Vela Cup that's going on here.
Right.
At the St. Francis Yacht Club. Meanwhile, we, of course, are here at the Beach Street Yacht Club, where we come to you every Tuesday and Friday at 1300 Pacific. Welcome to the show, and we are here with Julia, thanks to this guy, Julia.
Yes. It's my favorite friend who is the elevator actually architect. And
is he an architect?
Well,
he's an elevator repairman. We call him not Dave the cable guy. He's Dave the elevator guy. Yes. And as we said on the show the other day, he was coming after because Julia couldn't get down here from the Commodore's suite because the elevator was broken. So Dave came right after the show. I told him that we're going to use his picture. I took a shot of him. He said that was okay. And thanks again to Dave, the elevator guy, the elevator man here who fixed the BSYC elevator.
Because he built it, he knows every little thing about it, and that's lovely.
One can only hope. Do you know, Julia, what day it is today? Here's your first and only clue. In fact, it's a big weekend around the world. I did not know this. It's Jazz. International Jazz Day is this coming Sunday, the 30th, but it's already well and truly underway all over the world. It's an international day declared by the UN, UNESCO, to highlight jazz and its diplomatic role of uniting people in all corners of the globe. It is celebrated annually on the 30th of April. The idea came from jazz pianist and UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador Herbie Hancock.
Yes.
Jazz Day is chaired by Hancock and the UNESCO, of course, Director General. They do a live stream from the UN all over to the globe, Facebook, just like we do, Facebook, YouTube, and so on. This was from you can see Mr. Hancock there on the left of that shot at the piano, All-Star Global Concert webcast from the UN. It will be webcast this Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, which is, of course, 1 o'clock here on the West Coast, and UTC, that is 1 plus 7 is 8, 2000 UTC on Sunday. And it's a deal. Herbie Hancock will take viewers on an international tour of sights and sounds showcasing jazz in all its diversity. Concert will feature performances literally from across the globe, Beijing to New York, San Francisco, even down there in South Africa, Ted Ryman, and Joburg, not in your town, but across the globe. So it's airing Sunday at 2000 UTC, 1300 Pacific. And these are all the events attached to International Jazz Day. I had no idea.
Oh, I didn't either. Terrific.
It's terrific. But having said that, having lived in Germany, where jazz is a deal, having, raced and judged in Denmark, for example, where jazz is a deal, and of course in Spain it's a deal too. In fact, there's a big jazz fest this Sunday in the home of AC 37, home of the America's Cup, Barcelona. Hundreds of jazz events around the world. Have a look at this.
Jazz Club.
Now, this is not Spanish. This is Catalan. Promo for Barcelona's International Jazz Day this Sunday, the 30th of April. 10 hours of live music on a particular street in an area. Quite a lineup. So since we're talking a lot about Barcelona these days, I thought we'd feature a little promo for their jazz festival this Sunday the 30th in honor of International Jazz Day and Week. How's that, Julia?
It's lovely.
Isn't that? International Jazz Day, this Sunday, but going on now. Now, Tom said, Crutonic Tangential. Look at this, Julia. Do you know? I bet you Chris knows where that is. He's escaped with his daughter for a moment. Do you know where that is, Julia?
No.
That is Fort Adams State Park, Newport, Rhode Island. That's the Rhode Island Sound.
I started to say it's Upper New England.
You were right. That's Fort Adams, home of the, of course, Sail Newport and many, many events, cultural and sailing and otherwise. And it will be the home again of the Newport Jazz Festival. There's a sight. It's a sight to behold. We used to always take our J24 over there or somebody else's boat, anchor off and listen to the music for free. That's looking north to the bridge from the north tip of Fort Adams. And then the crowd fills in on the ground there, looking up at the stage, which is built there on the north side of the fort. Newport Jazz Festival, August 4 to 6. If you're in the area, I commend it to you. It's a terrific event. Go have a look at it. The 2023 lineup is, as one of the radio stations called it, an index of the new mainstream. I won't read all this, but the Newport Jazz Festival has always been a barometer, not just one of the world's most prestigious stages for jazz since 1954. And of course, the aforementioned Herbie Hancock will be there as one of the, arguably headlining it again this year. Now, I couldn't leave it there. As much as I like jazz, as you all know, we have to do a quick Fosey focus before we get to Chris Poole. Do you, Julia, know who this is? Of course you do.
We just talked about
He's from Texas.
Yeah.
Is that a better hint? Picture's not real light, but that is our Fosey, Jonathan Frank. From Galveston, sailor, airline pilot for United, Renaissance man, jazz bassist, and painter. Jonathan says that I talked to him last night and again this morning, playing jazz like sailing is a great vibe. Jazz is as a sailing ship racing to the mark, the end of the song. This demands that performers must understand the foundations of the composition. If you do not know how to have a steady helm on the melody, the ship will quickly goes off course. This is the fundamental key. Whoever's at the helm, be it the drummer, the bass, the lead musician, or vocalist, the melodic course must be maintained. Once the course is established, then and only then can improvisation or deviations be tried to find the best course made good. However, the crew must always anticipate the changes and have the skills to perform. This is great prose.
Yes.
Together at the highest level. This is the only way to find that harmonious sweet spot and lay the course made good to the mark. Our Fosey, Jonathan Frank. Now, Julie, that painting over your shoulder is one of his paintings.
I know.
Over your right shoulder there. That's from the 2013 America's Cup here. He memorialized that, almost capsized by Emirates Team New Zealand. Thanks to Jonathan Frank for that. And this is his latest painting.
Oh, is it? I haven't seen that.
Just I ran it on my Facebook page, I think. He calls it the Sea View. It's after a church outside of Atlantic City in New Jersey. Jonathan's latest painting. Our Renaissance man, Super Fosey, Jonathan Frank, thanks for all that.
And everything else he does.
and everything else. With that, let's get to our Fozy, Chris Poole, and give him a real bravo Zulu. We're so proud of him, delighted to meet him. He's half our age, Julia.
I know.
And more. Chris Poole standing by in Westport, Connecticut. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure. We saw your daughter briefly there. She was in your lap. I guess your wife works?
Yeah, my wife is Alicia Martorella. She actually is the manager of Cedar Point Yacht Club here in Westport, Connecticut,
cool.
Which is one of the most sailing-focused yacht clubs I think I've ever witnessed. I think they sail 6 days a week in the summer. So
You said Cedar Point?
Cedar Point, yep.
I sailed Fireball, Joni Ellis, Art Ellis, Fireball somethings, North Americans there years ago, Cedar Point Yacht Club. Before you were born, probably.
Racing.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Huh? Let's talk about what this astonishing thing that you just achieved, Chris, and bravo Zulu to you and your entire team at Long Beach Yacht Club. We talked about it on Friday's show and again on Tuesday's show, because it's never been achieved before, at least in the modern era. In the pre-round robin era, there may have been.
Yeah, the historians are kind of digging through the records. 58 Congressional Cups. There's a lot of results to go through, but at least in the more modern double round robin format, I'm the first team to ever sail undefeated all the way through.
Well, that, as I said, is quite an achievement. And let's talk about how that was done. You went through the double rounds robin. If you went to Stanford at Michigan, we would say double round robin, right, Julia?
Right.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you go to school, Chris?
I sailed at Maine Maritime Academy.
Oh, good.
New York? U.S.?
No, Maine Maritime.
Oh, Maine Maritime.
Yeah.
I was just talking with somebody who was at Maine Maritime. A Fozy, somebody.
There's a few of us from there.
Sorry?
There's a few of us from Maine Maritime, so.
But yeah, who was one of our Fozy, Julia, I was just talking with, who went to Maine Maritime. Nonetheless, a lot of sailors did, obviously. Great school, great sailing school as well. So, rounds robin, and you went through the double round robin. There are 10 teams, and you raced each of the other 9 twice. Came out 18-0. Were you worried at that point, Chris, that you might be up against what Andy Rose calls it's a superstition, the curse of going undefeated in the rounds robin?
No, we weren't too worried about it. It's not my first undefeated round robin. It's not something I haven't crossed before, so it's not really something we were too worried about. Some of our friends / competitors were, playing head games a bit about it, but we weren't really fazed by it. Our objectives.
You saw what happened to Jeffrey Peterson in Ficker Cup.
Yeah, Jeffrey sent me a really kind message from him and his Golden State boys about our result, saying we were able to do what he couldn't. Jeffrey's a great competitor, and I'm sure he'll be back in Con Cup next year. We weren't really too worried about it. Our focus was just getting better every day and, try to finish the 5th day the best we could.
Well, you did that. You carried on and went through the rounds robin undefeated. Then you got into the semifinal against Nick E.J., who is going to win this thing sooner or later. He's also a Fozy. He's been on the show any number of times, as have all these guys. I don't know if I've had Yep on the show, but for sure Ian has been on the show any number of times. Tell us about the semis. Why did you pick Nick E.J. instead of somebody else?
Well, we raced Nick E.J. in the finals at the World Championships in Sydney in December, and it was a pretty close-fought battle that we felt we were the stronger team despite losing, and we were happy to take the 4th-place team. He didn't have a great final day. He just got through to the semis, and, the Nick or Yeppe and Ian were both fairly strong teams, as you saw by their scoreline, 13 and 14 wins each. So we decided to go with who we thought we had the best chance to advance to the finals against.
Well, and that was the mistake that I think Jeffrey made. I spoke with Jeffrey the next morning after Ficker Cup, and I said, why'd you pick the 2nd place team? It always comes back to bite. Anytime somebody in the America's Cup has done that, it's come back to bite them in the ass. Pick the second place team instead of the third or fourth. Oh, we just had. I can't remember now who it was he picked, but he said, "Oh yeah, we've always had a good go. In fact, during this regatta, we had a good go. So I thought we'd go against him in the semis and get him out." Who was it that he went in the semis? Do you remember?
Chris Weiss.
It was Chris Weiss, wasn't it? Who, of course,
Yeah.
had a good regatta. So you then blew out in the semis Nick E.J., who then went on to win the petit finale against Ian. And he's a comer. I think he's going to be top notch for sure. Anything else on the semis that you want to mention?
No, Nick's got a really good team with him. His bow guy has sailed with Riptide before during the COVID lockdown while Nick was stuck down in New Zealand. So they're a great bunch of guys on that boat, and they won the World Championship, so they're no one to be messed with. And no, he sailed really well against Ian in the petites, and we were after moving on from Nick, we were pretty focused on just going up against Jeppe and trying to be the fastest boat on the water.
By the way, if anybody wants to ask a question, we've got a lot of people making comments and questions already, Chris, and we may go to a few here. There's people telling us the weather in their local areas. Let me just see if there's any questions yet. Andrew Pindar, who you will know, who's been a supporter over the years on and off of, in fact, mostly on of Ian Williams, he says, this has been such a pent-up victory waiting to happen after years of hard endeavor on the WMRT. It was only a matter of time. Congratulations. Cedar Point Amusement Park, yeah, they're asking if your yacht club, Cedar Point, and Cedar Point Amusement Park, is Steve Gruber is saying, is on the south shore of Lake Erie near Sandusky, Ohio. Well, it's
different Cedar Point then.
It's an interesting. I mean, it's a fair question because we got people all over the world, and Steve Gruber, who's a terrific sailor in his own. Do you know Steve?
I don't know if we've ever overlapped, but I meet a lot of people, so it's hard to keep faces and names straight.
Exactly. He's saying nice job, and on and on here. There's a lot of people. Sir Mix-a-Lot or the Thaw. What it was? Okay, I don't know about all that. Oh, they're back now on jazz. So let's carry on here. Get back to Con Cup. So you got into the finals, and you were 3-0. So finishing up your undefeated, what I'm calling, and I guess you're calling it a perfect series. It was perfect. I mean, not perfect in every respect, but certainly on the scoreline.
No, the scoreline was perfect. I think that's about as close as at the World Tour level against that level of competition. I think that's as perfect as you could possibly be. We had two penalties on us. Both came from racing Jeppe, one in the round robin stage, and then in the finals he gave us a penalty. Those were our two pre-start mistakes. And then, I think, one race we didn't lead the first top mark for all of 30 seconds, and then we hooked and lopped Eric Monin, and that was kind of race over. We finished a leg ahead. It was pretty. We kind of really cooked him with a double penalty. But other than that, no, there's always room for improvement. I think we can still be a little bit faster than we were at this year's Con Cup. So we've already started putting the pieces in place to get the same guys back for next year in April, and just kind of keep rolling from where we left off this Con Cup.
Yeah, I think what you said, though, was accurate and maybe a big understatement. Everyone tells me you were a click or two faster, upwind and down, in breeze and in light. Is that fair? Is that true?
Yeah, I would say we were probably the fastest team out there.
Why was that?
Well, it's kind of started in 2019 when we went into the final day fighting with Scotty Dixon and Nick Egnet-Johnson for the last spot in the semifinals, and we made some mistakes. That was my first time sailing with Jakob Aschenbrenner, my now tactician from Denmark. We had made an agreement in the Ficker Cup that whichever of us lost our semifinals, if we lost, would sail with the other one as tactician. And unfortunately for him, he was the one who came out on the downside of that. So he got stuck with me. We had this moment, we had moments of really good match racing in that series in 2019. And then COVID happened, and so the circuit kind of died down. And coming out of COVID in 21, the discussions with my supporters were, how do we get you to the top where we know you should be? And, we need the right pieces there. So in the 2021 Con Cup, we made the semifinals, but we lost we ended up losing our semifinal and then the petite final. So we finished fourth, which is a great result, a big improvement. We were definitely in the mix. And then in 22, we made one further step, which was we felt our match racing wasn't strong enough, our match race tactics. So we brought back Jakob Aschenbrenner as tactician. And last year we felt we were even on speed with Taylor and Ian, and if not faster at times. And so Jakob and I have been working on it for the last year, sailing as much together as we can. And then we've gotten to the point where I'm no longer part of the match race team after the pre-start's mine, and any boat on boat situations are mine. But other than that, once we're off the line, I'm on the speed team with my main trimmer and my jib trimmer.
So your speed team, which means that's one of the reasons why you're so damn fast, because you're focusing on making the boat go fast, not worrying so much about, although I'm sure you are, at least in the back of your mind, where you're going. And I heard you say at one point, was it in the last race, or maybe it was I can't remember, you said there was a discussion between you and Jakob about which way to go, and you said, quote, "It's your boat."
Yeah, so that's we've treated this program and our objectives as if we were an America's Cup syndicate, which is the only way you can treat a sailing at this level. You have to put it all on the table. And the best way forward we saw as a team and in our discussions is, once we're racing, you have to trust your tactician. And obviously trusting in match racing, where one decision can cost you an entire race or a regatta, that's a big amount of trust to build. And Jakob and I have been getting more and more in sync on the same page. And that's, a testament to him and I being similar in our styles of racing and what we want out of what we need, what info we need. So, and the America's Cup, the helmsman, as soon as the start goes, you're part of the speed team. So I have to step away from that if we're going to be fast. And if we're fast, it makes the tactics easier. And when I said it's Jakob's boat, it's basically I'm on the speed team. I'm not worried like our position. He's painting me enough of a picture that I can see what the race course is without looking, which means all I have to do is work with my jib trimmer and work on boat speed.
It's amazing, Julie. We've had this discussion on this show many times. And whenever I've had good boat speed, or if not great boat speed, but at least good boat speed, my tactics are flawless. It's fantastic. You always look so good tactically if you got a little speed to burn. So
it doesn't hurt.
There's some questions. Gordon Smith, who's a Brit living in Denmark and knows Jakob and knows, in fact, all you guys, because he every now and then he drags his kids to some of these events where you all are sailing in Europe, and as a regular on here. He wants to know did the light weather conditions, do you think, give you an edge?
We were happy in all conditions. We had, I've sailed there a number of times in the last 2 years for U.S. Nationals. We're out there. The Swanica Cup, which Long Beach had taken off my hands in 2019, was out there, and that was pretty light air because we raced in June. So I was pretty dialed in for the moting for those conditions. And to be fair, as soon as it looked like we were going to get the racing off after the 2-hour delay, Jakob was pretty satisfied to have it be in light air. And he was, his statement was, we are stronger in the light air than we are, I think we're stronger in the lighter air than we are in the breeze, which is saying something.
Did you grow up on the Sound, on Long Island Sound?
No, I'm actually from Maine originally. I spent 23 years sailing the coast of Maine. Casco Bay at Portland Yacht Club is where I got my start. And then I sailed for a great organization that ran all the high school sailing during the off seasons, which was Sail Maine in Portland, about 10-minute drive from where I lived. They had all the high school sailors from the local junior programs would sail out of Sail Maine in the spring and fall. And then from there I went to Maine Maritime Academy, where Tom Brown, the coach at the time, got me into the match racing and put me recommended I apply for an internship at the Chicago Match Race Center back in 2011.
Right. I remember that. And you are the first American. What's your ranking now worldwide?
First.
I never ask a question. I learned that from lawyers. You never ask a question you don't know the answer to. But it's the first time an American's, okay, Taylor is an American, a USVI.
Yeah.
First time an American's won it. Well, when did Taylor last win it?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. And then before that, I mean, Ian's been on top of the heap, Ian Williams.
Yeah, I think since I looked at the results, I think 2013 was the last time someone other than Taylor or Ian has won the cup till me.
Yeah, Canfield Steve Gruber is saying, let's talk a little bit about the opposition. And first of all, Ian Williams, who ended up fourth, sailing for China One Ningbo, was 14-4 in the rounds robin, and then was dispensed in the semis. What do you think? Is Ian coming back? Is he going to be stronger than ever, or do you think he's over the hill?
He's definitely not over the hill. I think it's, time on the water. There haven't been a lot of events last year. There was only two grade ones, the Congressional Cup and the finals in Sydney. So this year the tour is back to 4 events. We have Marstrand in July, and then we have Bermuda in October, and then the finals in China. So I'm not too worried about Ian. I think he'll round back into form. He's 6-time world champion, 5-time Congressional Cup winner, and he's still there. So
nice, and I think you're right. What about Nick EJ?
Yeah, no, Nick's team is phenomenal. They've got they're planning on racing the whole season. We'll see them in Marstrand and in Bermuda, and at the finals in China. So he's got a really good core group that he's been sailing with, like myself, for the last few years. So that's just building to strengths.
Do you know his family at all?
Not really. No, I've never met any of them. I know I believe his mom was quite the sailor. So
Leslie Egnott, his mom, was the skipper for Bill Koch's all-female team in 1995. They almost won the trials. I mean, they were top notch. And Nick has won I know Nick from the Gulf Cup because he's won the Gulf Cup and sailed in it a number of times. He might even still be eligible this year. I can't remember now if he was named. Do you remember, Julia? Was he named? And when we ran, because we did the world announcement for that here on the show last Friday, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's quite a good sailor, and you knocked him off in the semis, right?
Yeah.
And 3-0 was that a tougher? I ask unfair questions. I'm sorry, but was that a tougher series than the finals?
No, I think Jeppe was the stronger team. They had a little more speed, so I think they pushed us maybe to be a little bit more on than Nick did. So again, when you have the speed, it's hard to
Yeah.
When you have a little bit of speed edge, it's not really that worrisome when it's a close match. But Jeppe probably had the second best boat speed out of everyone, and so.
Well, speaking of Jeppe, now you're against him in the finals. How did you get that? I guess you don't know this. Julia knows this, but we were on the air last Friday while you all were racing in the, I guess it was the finals were Saturday. So it was Friday and you were racing in the semis you were in the semis because the semis ended pretty early on Friday because they both went 3-0 by like 2:30. You were off the water, right?
Yeah, 3 matches and we were headed in.
Right. So we went live. I went to the YouTube channel. We're watching it live. Andy Rose was on here with me and Julia, because we were doing the announcement of the Gov Cup selectees, the people that the committee had selected. And Andy started commentating because at the request of the FOSI. And it was so much so that we were invited to do it again the next day and have a watch party and go on Zoom and just have I didn't want to compete with the Long Beach Yacht Club's feed. But how did you, on Saturday, erase the penalty? Because we were wondering about that. I guess that was in the semis, wasn't it? That you erased the penalty?
No, that was the finals.
It was the
Saturday
finals.
was the finals, and we clipped we got a penalty. Jeppe did a good job. We weren't quite close enough to the boundary. He was able to get inside of us and got a small overlap. And I believe there was a the smallest of touches, but the umpires thought we weren't keeping clear as a winner boat. So we were given a penalty, but we weren't too phased by it because, we had and we were also over early that start, but Jakob's calls on when to tack for the boat and tack back put us in a really strong position. And, again, our boat speed was enough that we were happy as long as we're off the line even. We weren't too phased from there.
Well, but you had a penalty, but didn't you erase it on the run?
Yeah, we cleared it on the finish line.
Oh, you did? Okay.
We did the first upwind, stretched quite a bit, and then from there we stretched even more in the downwind because they fell back far enough to get caught up in the traffic of the petite finals. So that gave us a gap, and then the calls from there were just sail the next upwinds like we've been sailing all week, go fast forward and just spin it at the line, and we went under a ton of pressure.
Julia?
We didn't really see that.
I'm actually thinking of the semis because we were watching and we were cutting back and forth to the show and then watching you guys live, and it was in the semis that you erased a penalty on a run. You didn't?
No,
maybe it was the other semi.
Yeppe and Ian. Their match was a lot closer. The media people jumped off our boat and went over to their pair for the final two matches, or the final two flights. We never got a penalty in the semis. Wasn't able to put a penalty on us.
That must be it. But it was good fun, good racing. It always is. What do you think of the boats? Is it time to change the Cat 37s to something else, or are you happy?
No, I think they're a good boat. I think that's the beauty of the World Match Race Tour is you have to be a talented sailor on any boat that you sail on. You can't just be good in one specific boat. Like you go to Bermuda, you have the IODs. When we go to Marstrand in July, we're going to be sailing, I believe, Far East 28s, which are 4-person asymmetrical planing boats. So, I don't think the Cals need to go, but I think we need to, some point down the road, maybe. But for now, they're great boat to match race, and it's just you need to be good at sailing a dip pole and being able to feel out a heavy boat and get her rumbling. Okay,
let's talk about your team. You went 18-0, as we've said, in the rounds robin, right, Julia? Rounds robin, not round robins.
I know.
I mean, you gotta say it correctly, the way you at Sanford would say it.
Oh, of course.
Or at Hartwood. What would you say at Maine Maritime? Would you say round robins or rounds robin?
Round robins.
See, robins. He's a good Michigan boy, Maine boy.
It's much easier to say.
Round robins. Chris Poole went 18-0, and his Riptide. What's Riptide Racing? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so when I started sailing back in 1999, and my mom had signed me up for a summer camp and told me to act like I knew what I was doing on the first day. That's how my career got started, with those words of wisdom. Just fake it till you make it, more or less.
Yeah.
And anyways, that winter, after a really successful summer of learning to sail and actually racing 3 weeks into my sailing career, I got second place out of 40 kids in a junior Olympic event in Greenfleet. My yacht club tried to push me onto the race team, but I didn't have a boat and this and that. Anyways, that winter, my mom surprised me with my Christmas present, which was my very own Opti. And we were trying to come up with a name, and we named it Riptide. And I always said I had a lot of success with that boat. And I was like, if I ever have a big boat or whatever, ended up being a team, I would name my boat Riptide. And so in 2011, I did my first grade 3 match race at CMRC, and they're like, what's your team name? And I was trying to think of it, and I'm like, oh, we'll call it Riptide Racing.
It's a nice name.
Isn't that nice?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Oh, that's terrific. Now, this was a great moment afterwards. I think I told you in the tech check, the screen grab I took off the live video. When do we know if it's pronounced properly, Bork or Borsch?
I believe it's Borsch, but I'll probably say it differently every time I see you up there. But
so what was this like?
We're on a first name basis, so I'm not really too.
Yeah, Gordon Smith is saying we should call him JB, and then we don't. I think that was his comment. Call him JB, but
you can't call him JB because that's Yanni Bernson's.
Well, exactly. We got Aussie John Bertrand and American John Bertrand, so JB doesn't work. We got John Burnham in San Diego, and we got John Burnham, who's the other John, the East Coast John Burnham, who's the editor of Sailing World.
He's he's going to be around a while. So just call,
You're talking about Connecticut, John Burnham. Yeah, exactly. So this was a nice moment. What you must have just been the going undefeated and winning your first Crimson Blazer must have just been sinking in.
Yeah, Yeppe came by. That was like mid interview. I was just kind of still in disbelief that we actually hadn't lost a race for. I mean, what a way to win your first Congressional Cup. But Yeppe and his whole team, they're all really great people and great sailors, great guys. And so for them to come by, give us a congrats, it was really, admirable. I know they wanted to have a closer fight. And afterwards, there were a lot of really I think they were impressed with our boat speed. So they're very hungry, I think, to get better.
One of the comments is from an Aussie. Do you know Jody Shields? Good sailor.
I do know Jody.
Jody from Wanji. Jody is a regular on here, and it's what time is it in Sydney? It's 06:36. So even though it's Saturday morning, he gets up early to come on here, and he's saying, "Good morning, all. Congrats, Chris. Obviously, you were fast because you had an Aussie on board."
Yeah, well, it depends. Two or one. One of our crew is from Tasmania, and they don't always consider themselves Australian. So,
fair enough.
But one of our other crew is definitely an Australian. So we'll get to them when you get to that slide of our team. But yeah, Yeppe. Back to Yeppe, he's off the water. We're really good friends, and he's a really great competitor. And I'm sure him and Nick and Ian, we're all going to have a lot of battles in the next few years, and it's going to be great to have the challenge of those guys pushing us.
That is so true. You go back, as Julia knows well, you go back and talk to the guys who raced in the early days of any of these events, whether it's the America's Cup or Congressional Cup, and the camaraderie that develops. And you talk to Andy Rose and Ted Turner and all those guys who race year after year against each other in Congressional Cup, and many other, L.J. Edgecombe, and famously good sailors, famously cool people. Speaking of cool people, how's your relationship with the commish, with the executive director?
Yeah, James is great. He's been really working hard, taking over the tour right before COVID hit and then keeping it going. He's got a great circuit. All the grade twos in the U.S. are part of the tour. You can earn points towards the World Tour Leaderboard, Vicker Cup, the Grand Slam Series. And then obviously Congressional Cup is one of the major events. So, he's done a really great job, and there's a lot of excitement coming out of the finals that are going to be in China. We have 4 events this year. And there's a lot of, based off the conversations we had in Long Beach, there's a lot of interest from China to have their own match racing circuit. So there could be a surge in, this whole match race circuit. And, if you look at racing in the U.S., match racing is probably the strongest circuit. Between the grade threes that are hosted by Detroit, Chicago, Oak Cliff, Long Beach, San Diego, St. Francis, and Annapolis. You have 2 Women's World Tour events going on this week right now finishing, and then next week the second one starts. I mean, it's hard to say there's a better discipline to be, pushing yourself in than the match race circuit.
Well, we are big fans of match racing here on Sailing Illustrated, aren't we, Julia?
Absolutely.
And as are, by extension, then most of the we say FOSI. I'm not sure I explained that, Chris. Friends of Sailing Illustrated, FOSI, and that's where that comes from. And James Pleasance, Gordon Smith is saying, has done a remarkable job. I think I mentioned at the top of the show, James is here for the Women's World Match Racing Tour, and that's quite an achievement too. He's over at St. Francis, and that is a great development, too. It's the first regatta of 4 here. We're going to talk about that in a minute, and Chris is going to stay with us. By the way, if you are just joining us live via Skype from Westport, Connecticut, is our guest today, Chris Poole. We're delighted to have him on. He's just come off the Congressional Cup, where he won every race in the modern era, at least in the round robin, then followed by semis and finals. We're all quite sure. And I did also, Chris, I talked to Camille Daniel, past Commodore of Long Beach, who's up here for the women's. Talked to her yesterday, day before Wednesday, and she said, we're quite sure no one's ever won every race, even in just the old days of only rounds robin, because it used to be round robin. right? One or
Yeah.
maybe two rounds robin. See, rounds robin, Julie. You got me well trained. One or two rounds robin. I don't know. And no semis and finals. But this is a much better format, isn't it, Chris?
Well, 24 races it's a lot of races. There's a lot of chance, and at this level, all the those top four teams, any one of us could have been the winner this year or years past, and to I don't know, it still hasn't fully sunk in yet. We had at the Worlds in Sydney, I think we had made it through our quarterfinals undefeated, and some of the guys were asking like, "Oh, are you gonna go undefeated and win this whole thing?" And I was like, "That's a tall ask." And then to actually do it at the next event here, at the Congressional Cup is it's a bit surreal. So it's just taking some time to sink in, but the only way that kind of thing can happen is if you have a great team, and that is one thing I definitely had.
Well, speaking of your team, let's go have a look because they obviously were good, and then we're going to get to a few more questions and then get to the women's so that you can blast off. But this team of yours, by all accounts, was superb and real gentlemen on and off the water with you and the Crimson Blazer there in the middle. Matt, Corey, you can introduce him for us. You can see the slide.
Yeah, so looking at the screen from left to right, that's Matt Cornwell, and then from the UK, Luke Payne from Australia, then me in the middle, Mel Parker from Tasmania, Bernardo Freitas from Portugal, and Jakob Aschenbrenner from Denmark. So pretty international crew that's put together, and no, they all are professionals. Matt, Luke, and Mal are all America's Cup sailors. So they bring the level that our team aspires to, and helps make sure we're always on point and always pushing to be the best.
Well, help me out here. I'll fix this lower third, or I'll talk to my graphics department, right, Julia?
Yep.
Matt Cornwall is GBR.
Yep.
Luke Payne is AUS.
Australian.
And Mal Parker is Australian, but he's really
Tasmanian.
a Tasmanian.
Well, he's Tasmanian, but he mostly lives he's been living in Newport for like the last 10 years, Rhode Island.
Oh,
in Newport, Rhode Island. And Bernardo Freitas is Portuguese, you said?
Yeah, he's from Portugal. He was actually talked about Matt. He was a last-minute fill-in. We found we were going to be slightly underweight, and unfortunately, we had to make a tough decision to make sure we were at weight with the forecast looking like we're going to have breeze a lot of the time. So we had to. My normal main trimmer, Ryan Wilmot, who's also Australian, was kind enough to agree to step down and let us swap him out. And Bernardo was not sailing the actual Worlds and was available to jump in. And so he flew over here from Portugal. He hasn't match raced since 2013, so or at least match raced monohulls. And so he's had 10 years off, but he jumped in. He's one of the best, main trimmers in the business these days. And then, so he was great, and he's from Cascais, Portugal.
How many regattas have you done with Jakob?
This is like maybe the 10th. There's been a lot since 2022 when our first Con Cup was. We did a bunch last year. He was at the Worlds. Jakob is, him and I are, very similar match racers in our style of racing. So that's why I think it works with us as skipper tactician combo. And, the whole thing that got me into sailing is I could sail an Opti really quick if I didn't have to think too much. And now we've gotten to the point where I can actually just drive the boat. And, the results kind of speak for themselves when I'm allowed to drive.
We can all go back through the America's Cup and talk about Cup winners. And, we all talk and remember the skippers' names. But the tacticians, and Andy Rose, of course, is the first one to tell us how important and his classic line is, any monkey can steer.
Well,
and he means it.
Yeah, and he means it. The tactician, he says, is the real challenge.
I'm just the guy at the back of the boat holding the wheel. But no, like the whole thing is to put together to put together 6 guys that have the same mentality, the same focus and drive to put their best, foot forward. I don't think there was a single, it was just one of those weeks that everything came together. Our pre-starts were great, which is me and Jakob. Our boat speed was awesome upwind, which is, putting me and Mel and Bernardo together, and just getting that speed team dialed in right from the start. And then with Mal and Pano at the Luke at the front of the boat, we never had to worry about the corners. So like the kites always went up perfect and they always dropped perfect. And no, it's just a perfect culmination of, abilities and attitude. And, I don't know if it will ever happen again, going perfect like that, but that team was perfect. They were the best of the best.
One other question or comment, maybe there will be some more here, but Ed Worley, when we were watching you race in the semis on the show last Friday, we noticed your very light touch on the wheel. I think you were sitting to leeward, had just, the helm, the wheel between your thumb and your index finger, and a very light touch. Is that a trademark, or is that these boats, or is that everybody?
No, I think it's just the if you're gonna be a world-class helmsman and be the fastest on the water, you need to be able to drive without, being too aggressive. I think if you watch some of the videos, Yeppe has a similar kind of style of driving. You don't need to be aggressive if you can feel the boat. So you don't have to have a steel grip on the wheel. And, that again, my team, Mal and Bernardo, had me really dialed in on just, looking forward and sailing. And so didn't have to look around and just could really focus on driving. And when you're at the right angles and you figured it out, you can kind of take a much lighter approach to the helming responsibilities.
You mentioned a steel grip as opposed to a light touch. That's a nice segue into a question I had. I'm sorry I didn't give you time to prepare during the tech check.
No worries.
But it came up in the debrief with the women, with the umpires the night before last, and the question was the steel balls maneuver. Can you explain that for our very erudite audience?
In a pre-start, in a match race, you have a yellow and a blue boat entering, and the blue boat is on port, has to keep clear. Normally what you'll have is a standard dial-up, and the blue boat is trying to get over to the playground past the race committee boats, so that way they can, start circling and pick their time back to the line. It can be difficult at times to get out of that as the blue boat, but if the yellow boat necessarily overshoots it a little bit, the blue boat can do what's called a steel balls, which is committing to tacking and going below your opponent, which is on starboard. And they call it steel balls because you're risking your damage deposit and getting a penalty in order to do it. So you have to be pretty confident on your swing. I've done plenty in my time. Luckily, didn't have to do any this week at Congressional Cup, but it's just one of those maneuvers that you really have to have some cojones to go for it.
That's what it's not about the ball bearings in the helm, Julia. It's about having the cojones that are ball bearings.
I understand that.
You got to be willing to risk your damage deposit and getting a penalty from the umpires. So
who named it steel balls? Was that another Dave Perryism?
I don't know. That was before my time. I came into the game of match racing, and that was just what it was called.
Well, and of course, you say the playground, and that is the upwind right. If you're looking from behind the starting line, and the playground is where the boats eventually get to and start, as Chris said, start circling before they head back to the line. I don't know. Jody Shield, there'll be a clever comment here. Jody, they call it steel balls because metal... He's the only guy, Chris. Jody's the only guy on this show who can say the word testicles.
Yeah,
and then Julia always gives him and he is the only guy permitted on this show, and he's saying they call it steel balls because metal testicles sounds silly.
Yeah, you got to go with what rolls off the tongue. So.
Yes.
Steve Gruber saying maybe he should be renamed Steel Nerves. Yeah, maybe. I like steel balls, Steve. Another balls to the wall situation. Graham Sweeney up in Scotland, up in Yale, Scotland. Oh, man, you can tell how And at least I don't know if any other people, maybe in Europe they've had something to drink, but here we haven't had anything to drink. It's only 13:50 in the afternoon. And what's in your coffee, Julian? No Baileys, right?
No.
So one last question, and then we'll get to the women's, if I may. Chris,
Tom.
what is your favorite, Congressional Cup aside, and I'm sure it's one of your favorites, having just come off this big win. What is your other favorite or favorite events on the match racing circuit? Grade 1, 3, or otherwise? And why?
Top 3, other than Congressional Cup, I'd have to say Marstrand, Sweden is phenomenal. It's a beautiful venue.
Is that
really
because of the
people.
vista, the women sunbathing up on the rocks? I mean, I've been there.
No, it's just a great atmosphere. I come from Maine, and Josh Rejon, who you had on your show, he'll tell you he rode with me in the rental car from the airport up to another event up the coast past Marstrand. And the whole car ride, I was like, it's just like home. It's just like home.
Yeah.
Because the geography and the foliage, all of the trees and all, like, if you took me put me in a box and stuck me in the woods in Sweden, I would think I'm back in Maine until I saw like the red roof houses.
That's fair. So Marstrand, you like Marstrand. What else?
And then I gotta put Thompson Cup at my home yacht club. Oyster Bay is absolutely a stunning place to sail. And the Match 40s are, in my opinion, the best boat for match racing. You know, they were designed after the version 5 IACC boats back in 2000s, put together on a napkin at a bar. And they, once you sail them once, you realize, oh, this is what a match race boat was supposed to do.
How many of those does Dawn have at Oak Cliff?
The Oak Cliff Sailing Center has a total of 12 Match 40s right now.
Wow.
So,
and your home club is Sewanhaka Corinthian, Sewan Haka, if those of you not familiar. And why is it named SEA Wan, WANHAKA? Why is it named Sewanhaka?
I believe it. I could be mistaken, but I know it's Native American. I'm not 100% sure on, so I'm not going to say exactly where it came from, if it was a tribe name or a chief name, but I know it's a Native American name.
It was the local Native, the Native Americans local to Center Island. There was a tribe on Center Island, and they took the name. People who are aspire to be politically correct are trying to get them to change the name of the club. May they never do that. I think it's nice that they honor it.
I think as long as the club honors the history behind the name, then I think it's okay. There's lots of, I grew up in Maine. Yeah. It just so happened I lived on 2 different streets. The house my mom lives on currently and the house I lived on at one point in college were both named after the same Indian chief. So, and those are, 150 miles apart. So.
There was one other question. Jody's asking if you're better than Leonard Takahashi than Leo. We don't need to ask that. That's an unfair. That's a fun question, Jody. Jody needs to have some more coffee. Maybe needs some beer. It's Saturday morning down there.
I like the next one, which Rick Bannerot says, so many great ideas start with a cocktail napkin, which is true.
Well, if you Google Sewanhaka, which obviously I did before the show, because I never asked a question I don't know the answer to, as I told you. I learned that from Andy Rose and a number of other esteemed lawyers in my sea lawyerly years. If you Google it, Google says Sewanhaka is named after a boat because Sewanhaka Corinthian Yacht Club named a skimming dish type boat that's the Sewanhaka something or another. It's
the Sewanhaka class.
Yeah.
It is possible. Again, my history of that is actually not as good as it probably should be, given the amount of sailing I've done for the club. But I'm
No, you had it. You had it right. It's after the indigenous tribe on Center Island where the club is, And the boat
Yeah.
was then named after the club back in the the turn of the last century.
That sounds like the accurate history I've heard of once or twice.
But if you go onto Google, they tell you the club is named after the boat, which is not.
Well, that's definitely not true because where else would they have gotten the name? Well, I don't know. I can find out tomorrow. My yacht club's commissioning is tomorrow at 11:30 Eastern, so I will ask the appropriate people at the club to get my history up to date.
You'll be a popular. It will be a popular homecoming for you. You have the crimson blazer. Will you wear that tomorrow?
Yeah, it just got back from the dry cleaners. As you can see, it got a bit wet with champagne and various other celebrations. So it just got back from the dry cleaners, and I will be wearing it tomorrow down at the club.
So that crimson blazer is already. In fact, it looks there in the shop like maybe there's a little bit of.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
Did you get tossed? You didn't. You got tossed in, but not in the blazer.
No,
certainly.
That's all champagne. From Yeppe's team and Nick's team. They got me pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll wear that tomorrow?
That's the plan.
Yes.
Good. And how about this shot, which we found online? I guess that's at LAX after you'd won and you're going home. So really nice. I like this a lot.
Yeah, no, I was pretty tired. I think I only got, 3 or 4 hours of sleep. I woke up Sunday morning. I think I went to bed at 3 a.m., woke up Sunday morning at like 7:30, and I was kind of in a state of disbelief and excitement that, what I had just accomplished with my team, like that us as a team had sailed that well for 5 straight days was, it's still surreal to me. It's a testament to everything we work towards on our team, like that Riptide wants to do, which is we want to be the best sailing team in the world. And that core 6, I believe we could get on any boat in the world and give us a couple days practice and we'd be competing at the top.
Which bar did you close on 2nd Street on Saturday night?
Actually, surprisingly, we never made it to 2nd Street. We ended up at the Tracy's house, just actually down the street from the bars, and we never left. It was a really great house party and a really great way to wrap up an incredible week. Again,
I don't ask questions I don't know the answer to because several of the ladies are up here, not racing, but who were there at that house party with you all. Congratulations. It's fabulous. What's next for you and your team?
For us and our team, the plan is we're heading to Marstrand in July for Match Cup Sweden, and then we're going to partake in the Grand Slam series just because it's 4 Grade 2 match races. It's good practice, well, we have to. My club wants me to sail the Thompson Cup, and so we'll do that. We'll do the whole Grand Slam series as a plan, and then Bermuda, and then finals in China.
Same guys.
Same group of guys. Marstrand will only have 4 crews, so it'll be a smaller team. And then and then Bermuda will also be 4 again. And then it looks like the finals in China will also be 4 because they're going to use the same Far East boats that we're using in Sweden.
Yeah.
So Sweden will be a good kind of warm-up event for the World Championships.
Nice stuff. Okay, well, congratulations on your perfect Con Cup, undefeated, first time in memory, if not ever. They're not quite so sure what happened back in the early days when there was only round-robin racing, not a semifinals and then a finals. But to go undefeated in the semis and the finals, forget about the rounds robin.
Yeah, terrific.
Just great stuff, Chris. Yeah. Congratulations.
No, thank you. It wouldn't have been possible without my team and without my supporters back in Oyster Bay. They've backed me, back when I was just still quite finding my feet and not necessarily delivering consistent results. And they've stood by me and, have seen glimmers of what I could be. And they've wanted to see that realized. And this is a culmination of all that support and years of practice and just not giving up and not relenting on trying to be even better from every event to the next one. So, we're going to go to Marstrand and try to improve on, the mistakes we may have made or some of the issues we had at Congressional Cup and, keep getting better every race. There's the ceiling is, kind of self-made at this point.
Now, the president of your other sailing federation, the Australian Sailing, is Alistair Murray, and he's on here commenting. He's a Fozy, regular contributor. He's saying, congratulations, Chris. You and your team are going to be tough to beat. And if you don't mind answering Ed Worley's question just above that, he is saying, how are your team efforts financially supported? Is that mostly Sewanaka? Is that...
Yeah, no, we have, Sewanaka has a sailing foundation called the American Sailboat Racing Foundation that supports sailors like myself, kind of not in the Olympic circle. We support some of the offshore sailors and some other projects through our foundation. So primarily our support for now, and we're hoping to bring more sponsors on over the next year or two, is through donations through a 501c3 charitable foundation.
Cool stuff. Well, if anybody on here watching wants to support you, I guess you want to give them your email address?
Yeah, if anyone's looking to reach out, you can look up American Sailboat Racing Foundation and make contributions that way. Or if you want to speak to me directly, Chris at riptideracing.com. Chris
at riptideracing.com. Or you can contact us here, Julie at SI, and we'll put them in touch with Chris. Let's carry on. Chris, thank you very much. And again, congratulations. Let's go look at what's happening as we speak. It wraps up today, in fact, the Casa Vela Cup 2023. It's the first of 4 events on the new Women's World Match Racing Tour. Started on the 24th, wraps today, and they're go look at, maybe one of the Fozy can go have a look on matchracingresults.com for us to see what's going on. But up till now, it's really been a terrific event. A lot of breeze, unlike Long Beach, where it was pretty light, wasn't it, Chris, the whole week? Did you have any breeze to speak of?
Yeah, there were times where the breeze was, I think towards the end of the event it got lighter, but the first couple of days it was definitely there. Maybe not quite at the top end, but it definitely filled in quite nicely at, like, I would say 12 to 14, but it never really got up to, I'd say, their kind of higher range. Like, it didn't have its normal build, but it is a La Nina year, so the whole weather is kind of out of whack.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't ask me for weather advice. My crew, my forecasting was quite ridiculed by my teammates.
Well, it's been a cold, windy. Most of California, for that matter, has been cold and breezy. Or I don't know about breezy, but it's been cool, and it's the foghorn finally just shut off here. It's a nice, sunny, clear day here in the marina. We're just a couple, 3 blocks from St. Francis. I'm sure you've been here before, but they've had a breezy regatta so far here. And I assume again today, Nicole Briot, the local favorite from St. Francis, went through the double round 18-0 over Megan Thompson, who sailed with you, not with you, but against you in Con Cup. Terrific sailor from New Zealand. Celia Wilson, Anna Ostling, and on down the line, including Brooke Wilson, who we've been celebrating here on this show because we know that team from the Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron. And we were really pleased to see the RSY, because, those clubs down there. And you've got the Cruising Yacht Club, which does Sydney Hobart. And you've got Royal Freshwater Bay, which is very active, or that's in Perth, but the Royal Prince Alfred, very active. And the Royal Sydney's a little more, the America's Cup, and I won't call them snooty or anything because I love the club, stay there when I'm in Sydney often. And but to see these gals and to see the club get so excited about them, and terrific gals, we had them at St. Francis. They are racing at St. Francis, and we pulled them aside and got a photo the other night with our dear friend and Fozy, Darlene Hines, there in the middle in the red vest, and of course James Pleasance as well. But Brooke Wilson on the left, who is the skipper, these gals well. Gemma Burns, second from the left, and then Tiana Whitty, whose dad, Nev Whitty, I know very, very well, a former Congressional Cup, not only racer but also judge, umpire, and Emily Kegg on the far right. Terrific team of ladies, and the reason we celebrated them the other night at the club, Julia, I didn't know, I'm sure I told you this, but Darlene has bought, well, you knew that she has.
Yes.
But they were sailing Darlene's boat. Darlene's late husband, Dewey Hines, was a terrific Commodore of St. Francis, and she bought boat number 12 to add to the J-22 fleet here at St. Francis. And it was sailed, as I said, by the gals from Royal Sydney. That boat's name is Dewey. Dwayne Hines was the Commodore. Dewey was his nickname. Terrific Commodore. He's what year, Julia? 95 or 6, 7, sometime in there he was Commodore.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to see the boat and nice to see the very tight racing. Here is a video from yesterday.
Place to go. Have no place to go.
Yeah, Stingray, I'm just wondering if I'm not familiar with the music, which means it's probably copyrighted, and I'll probably get a copyright strike, so I'm going to actually turn it down. Stingray's saying, who's a Fozy up in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone know if that's copyrighted or otherwise music? Do you know, Chris?
I have no idea. I assume it's it's a tour event, so I assume they've done their due diligence.
Well, probably, but you can see, regardless of the great racing and the current, of course, it's always a current affair here on San Francisco Bay at the Vela Cup. The local favorites, third from the left, is, of course, Nicole Briot, who was leading. Has anybody seen results? Anybody had time to go on matchracingresults.com? Don't you, Julie? Because you'll lose your comment thing over there. But in the semis, as of this was last night, Nicole and Anna had split 1-1, so Nicole finally lost a race. And in the other semi, Megan and Celia, actually they were 1-1, and then Megan got docked a quarter of a point for some kind of an incident yesterday on the water. And we'll be watching the rest of it. They're probably still racing. I assume they are, and maybe see them at the prize giving over there if we get over there later on this afternoon, Julia. We have
that women's event is phenomenal. There's some top teams. I've had some good battles with a bunch of those sailors. Brooke Wilson, who you're talking about earlier from the Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron, when we were down at the World Championships for the tour back in December. Nev Whitty got us a little bit of training sailing a kind of a club only junior match race. Just so I kind of ran an impromptu clinic for all the teams, and I think our finals was actually against Brooke Wilson, and she gave us a pretty good fight. And earlier this week, I reached out to her and I told her, I was like, if you have any questions, comments about umpiring or match racing things, to give me a shout. And her and Tiana Whitty, Nev's daughter, gave me a video call yesterday with just some questions on how they can improve. And one of the other teams I've worked with is Sophie Otter's team. And they've reached out to me in the past when they were over at events in Europe with any kind of questions, and I'm always happy to help kind of up and coming teams figure out the game and get better.
Great attitude, and obviously the correct attitude. Now we have breaking news, which makes your win and your undefeated, your perfect series even more impressive, because Nicole Briot, who was undefeated until she split in the semi, she has now lost the semi.
Yeah.
And Nicole.
So Anna Osling advanced.
Yeah, Nicole is up 1-0 against Megan Thompson. So Megan also lost her semi. We were talking about those.
Nicole and Anna and Celia are the finalists.
Yeah. No, Nicole is out. Nicole is in the petit finale against Megan Thompson. So the finalists are Anna Östling from Sweden and Celia Willison, because the Thompson's the other petit finale. So that's interesting. We've got Celia and Anna in the finals. And once again, the curse of the perfect rounds robin coming out undefeated that happened to Jeffrey Peterson at Ficker Cups happened again now to Nicole Briot. You get into the semis and the finals, and the going sometimes gets tougher. Again, which just makes your performance down there even more impressive, Chris.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom. I mean, I'm not sure I believe in, those kind of curses. There's always the superstition you never win the practice race. I think, you you start slipping into that mindset, you're never going to be able to compete at the top. I think you just kind of have to brush it all off. All you can do is focus on your team and your boat, and if you do that, the rest will kind of follow suit.
When you're winning a practice race in a fleet event, do you quit before crossing the finish line?
No, I did that once, and I'll never do it again. I did it at the request of my crew, and I'll never do it again because it just wasn't a sensible. It's just kind of silly. If that's the only race you win, then you have to take it.
There she is.
Yes.
What's her name?
Her name is Aurora.
Hi, Aurora.
You may be match racing on the women's match race tour if you get into sailing.
She's what, 3 years old, you said?
You won't.
Hi, Aurora.
On your ducky? Aw.
Aurora, what's the ouchie on your...
I was unfortunately had to miss her birthday again this year because due to a Congressional Cup happening in the during her birthday last Wednesday. So
Nice.
She just turned 3, and my that's now 2 birthdays in a row I've missed. So next year we're going to figure out a better solution.
Take her to the regatta. Happy birthday, Aurora. Belated. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Hey, Aurora, may I ask you a question?
I don't know if she can hear you, but I'll tell her what it is.
Aurora, what's the ouchie on her forehead?
Aurora, how'd you bump your head? She fell off the steps. She was turning around to come down the steps and lost her footing. So
is she proud? Is she proud of her? Sorry, go ahead. Sorry,
Dad wasn't quite able to catch her.
Is she
but
proud?
luckily, she was wearing her helmet because she had been riding her scooters.
Is she proud of her Congressional Cup champion father?
Yeah, she's really happy for me, but I don't think she understands quite the significance because I put on my crimson blazer when I got home to show her, and all she wanted me to do was to take it off.
Oh.
Well, Gordon Smith is agreeing. He's saying, spot on, Chris. Don't let the superstition get into your head. I, like you, the same thing as you. One time that I was winning a practice race in a big fleet, a lot of boats, and then I bailed out just before the finish line. Did terrible in the regatta. Ever since then, I've always finished the practice race, win, lose, or draw. You go out there to practice. You might learn something.
Right.
I'm with you.
Well, if you don't practice like you're trying to win, then you're never gonna succeed.
Totally. Well, that's probably the attitude, the mental strength that got you through this whole Congressional Cup curse, the undefeated curse. Chris, thank you very much indeed. We appreciate you staying on for the ladies, and we'll be watching that. Clark, if you can keep us posted, Clark Chapin is watching that as we now have Anna and Celia Wilson in the finals, Megan and Nicole Briot in the petit finale. Chris, thank you very much indeed. We really appreciate you coming on live via Skype from your home in Westport, Connecticut.
Thanks, Tom and Julia, for having me. And if you guys are fans of match racing, there's another Women's World Tour event next week in Annapolis.
Correct.
So that'll be another, and most of the teams from San Francisco are going there. So the level of racing is going to be even higher because they've had a whole week of practice in San Francisco.
And in the same class of boat in J22s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good, Tom. Bye.
Thanks, Chris. Chris Poole, who, as you all by now know, won the Congressional Cup and won it in perfect fashion. He won every race in the rounds robin and then all 3 races in the semis and all 3 races in the finals. Never been done before. Brilliant performance. Very proud of him and very proud to have him on the show. Clark is reporting, Clark Chapin in Michigan, who's watching the results. He is saying that Celia and Anna are tied 1-1 in the final. So that looks like it is, Julia, as we would say in Michigan, it's turning into a real barn burner.
Yes.
Over there. Yep. Jody Shields is saying, yes, he is better than Leo. Leonard Takahashi. Chris is still, I won't put you back on the spot, Chris, but he's watching and smiling. But as you know, Julia, Leonard Takahashi is a dear friend of ours and a foe. He's been on this show, 5-6 times? Probably by now. And we followed him through Gov Cup.
Yes.
And the Olympics and SailGP.
Yes. Had a lovely time. Don't forget to go back and read the comments.
You're reminding Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we didn't cover them all by any stretch, and there are lots of cool comments that come up in the hundreds we get per show. And also, as you all know, comments are also welcome in replay. We are one of the few. First of all, we're the only live show, but we're one of the few shows that then leaves the comments open in replay because people are so respectful. The people that come on and watch our show, we're delighted and pleased and thankful that people come on here and are not croutonic, Julia.
Yes.
Right?
And if they're croutonic, they're only for a short time.
Well, because they get booted.
That's right.
They will get booted. Now, let's carry on here. We got a lot of other news. Now, we're just getting to what normally is in the A block. We have our special report, the Coach's Corner, from our super Fozy, John Emmett, who's wrapping things up in Hyères in France. And he checked in this morning from this bar.
Oh, good.
Les Sacs, or at least he sent me the picture as if he were checking in. There's some guy singing, I think, there in the background. It looks like a nice atmosphere in Hyères. Mm-hmm. And then he sent me this report just before we went to air. So he must have been having some fun over there in the evening on Friday night.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. So for anyone who hasn't already done so, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel and turn on those notifications so you never miss a show. Well, I'm here in Hyères and it's time for the final pack up for, I guess, 90% of competitors, and I'm now feeling brave enough to do the boat park walk because a lot of people have packed and gone because the medal race is only involving 10 boats per class. This venue, wow, it brings back a lot of memories. This was the first regatta Lily did after her major injury. And actually that was one of the things I think helped to win Olympic gold. That time off, wow, I mean, it's hard to imagine anybody more mentally focused after that big injury, but also physically, the preparation to do the lower body strength and to increase the aerobic fitness. It made a huge difference, and I think that's been reflected in my thoughts, that time off is very important, and that break in February made a huge difference. So yeah, sometimes it's hard to think of the big picture. You just want to keep going and going and going and racing and racing and racing, but that's not actually when you improve the most. So yeah, this venue has a lot of memories for me. Also means with the regatta finished now, or we just have the medal race tomorrow, that it's really the beginning of the end of the Olympic cycle. In less than a year from now, the final country qualifications will have been made. And that means we will know exactly which countries are going to the Olympic Games. We might not know which sailors, but we will definitely know which countries. So that is going to be a very high pressure regatta. So people who performed well here, they can just take a bit of confidence for that. And for those people who maybe struggled, time to think about those strengths and weaknesses. So I'm doing a slow walk around the Laser, or I should say Ilka boat park, being careful to avoid any sticky out mask, etc. Because now so many people have gone, there is that little bit more space. Now, what do we have tomorrow? We have the medal race. So I've been interviewing people about this, and one of the things which has come through is actually, I think most of the top sailors really enjoy it. It adds the excitement, not only for the sailors themselves, but for the spectators. And that spectator, that media side of things is really important as a way of promoting our sport. The other thing with my daily interviews is the top sailors, they're really aware of the importance of strengths and weaknesses and what they need to work on, and the fact that it's an all-round athlete who's likely to have the best result in Marseille. Even at this stage, with over a year to go to the Games, the main runners and riders of the various classes are starting to show their form. And I feel it's very much like a container. It takes a long time to speed up, slow down, or change direction in terms of performance. Yes, we have illness and injury and such things, but generally speaking, the people who are at the top, they stay there. You don't forget how to be a good sailor, and in some ways, acquiring fitness is the easiest thing. It's actually very difficult, requires a lot of work, but it's the one thing that you have complete control over. Whereas the venue, the types of conditions, and of course your other competitors, you have no control whatsoever. Lastly, the mental side of the game is perhaps the most important and the most difficult. There's been a few people who are currently overjoyed with their performance, and there's going to be a few people who are going to need to take a little bit of time to reflect about what happens. I was tempted to give the simplest piece of professional advice and tell them Sax Bar will help them forget. But longer term than this, you do need to analyse what went right and what went wrong so you can improve for the future. And remember, we're all individuals, and what works for some people may not work for others. Personally, one of my great strengths, but possibly one of my great weaknesses, is I don't actually like the time off. I like to be very busy, and that's possibly difficult for people who work with me. But the sailor burnt out, it's a very real thing that people need to be careful of. But yeah, another Olympic class regatta done, and hopefully I will join you on the show later.
There was John Emmett, a bit of an unceremonious end, but that was my fault, not his. A little cutting too close to the edge of the end of his video. But thank you, Super Fozy and Olympic coach John Emmett gives us a report for every show. It's astonishing. And he's a busy boy there, coaching and so on, and then producing videos for the ILCA class, producing videos sometimes for the local organizers, and, of course, reliably sending us videos here, which we greatly appreciate it for every show, virtually every show, Tuesdays and Fridays at 1 o'clock. John Emmett Sailing, get to the front of the fleet, and he likes to remind us to like, follow, and share as well. Not only does Julia do that at the end of the show, but
Well,
we do it here.
Easy to do. What it took me a while to understand is if you subscribe,
Yep.
you don't pay anything, but you do get notified of everything that goes on.
Yeah, the subscription just means that you're a member of the channel, in effect.
Yeah.
There's also now a join on YouTube. You can join and pay money to the channel and get special benefits, which we don't do. We're media-supported television, media-supported, the only live show in the sport, and Gordon Smith agreeing that John's words are wise words yet again.
Yes.
Over 100 messages, Julia. Now they're having an argument about courts-martial here in Seppo land, meaning here in, you know what Seppo land is?
Yeah, I forgot.
In rhyming slang.
Yeah.
And the Aussies like to call
right.
us Seppo. Septic tank rhymes with yank.
Yank,
So
that's
we're
right.
the Yanks. So we're septic tank, which is shortened to Seppos. And, it's a term of endearment, right?
Right.
Just like frogs is a term of endearment for France, for French.
Mm-hmm.
Frenchies, French fries.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say what we call the Aussies, but no, we don't call them.
No.
Thanks, John. Pleased to see 8 Aussies, Alistair's the proud president of Australian Sailing, through to the medal races tomorrow at Hyères. And rounds robin is as unmellifluous, how's that for a word, as attorneys general. Well,
It's true. It is hard.
The French are frogs, Ted Ryman is saying. Let's carry on here because this was kind of the big news. I'm really glad we had Chris on. I thought that was a terrific
good.
segment.
Yeah.
We had him on here for more than an hour, so we appreciate it very much. But this is the big news. As you all know, we are on the 4th leg of the ocean race from Itajaí, Brazil, up to Newport. They started last Sunday, the 23rd, so they're about a week into it almost, and expected in Newport in about 3 weeks' time. And then they'll be there for a week and then start on the 21st of May and head over to Aarhus in Denmark, go see Gordon Smith. And the big news, of course, we woke up yesterday morning to see this photo of Wholesome PRB having been, and they're the series leader so far, to see them dismasted in the South Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Brazil. I grabbed this from the video. They posted a video pretty quickly. It was amazing how quickly they had a video up from the yacht.
Yes.
From the boat. That was a screen grab that I took, posted to my Facebook page yesterday. And now they've released a video of the incident happening. Watch this.
Yeah, I did. Oh, my goodness.
Open this hatch, maybe. Rudder in the water! Oh, rudder in the water! Right. Where's the axe?
Pan, Holson, PRB, Holson, PRB, Holson, PRB, pan. We've lost our mast.
La jaune, la bleue, la rouge est coupée aussi. J'ai coupé celle-là quand même. Voilà. Il reste 200 là. Tout ça aussi là.
Happened at 5 in the morning yesterday morning, local time, 5 in the morning their time. You can see they've now got the rig up in the light of day and tied what's left of it,
So right
tied
like
to the
that
boat.
when it's an accident, huh? 1 second everything is perfect, 1 second everything is nightmare.
So that's Kevin Escoffier after they got the rig back on. They're headed to Rio. We're going to tell you some more about all this. I don't know what that meant, Steve Atkins. What do you think rudder in the water meant? I think they meant mast in the water, or meant, maybe that was lost in the translation. But that, of course, the PRB's superb skipper,
Yes.
Kevin Escoffier. And as Stingray is saying, is just grateful that Wholesome PRB did not get hold. Steve Gruber saying that's the beauty of a deck-stepped mast as opposed to one that goes down to the base of the boat and then starts to wobble around. When the forestay broke, I guess before you saw it go aft, the forestay or the interstay, and it broke when aft, and now it starts to who the mast can work the deck, it can work through the bottom of the boat. It just when it's deck stepped, it just falls backwards or to the side or whichever way it goes. But what a deal! So the headline today, when we looked in on the website, is 11th Hour Racing leads close quarters racing among the remaining 4 boats, while Wholesome PRB heads for Rio. So Charlie Enright's team is leading the fleet, while Kevin Escoffier is under jury rig to Rio and in a race to rejoin. He's hoping to get a mast shipped from France or from somewhere, but presumably France, to Rio, and they're going to stick it in the boat and rejoin the race and try to score at least 1 point. The last place, remember, gets 1 point. If you don't finish, you get 0 points. So that's the plan, and here is today's race report. See some repeats of what we've just shown you, but just an outtake. Wholesome PRB is out of the race for now. The overall race leader is motoring toward Rio after their disappointing dismasting yesterday. Disappointing is not the word. Scary. At least the conditions are not too bad.
So mast, shrouds, then you have a back stay and you have a front stay. And the front stay is a J2. All the MOCAs have always a J2, and now the J2 broke. It fell down, so the mast came down. And I feel very sorry for them. Luckily the crew is safe, and they're going back to the shore now, and I think they tried to fly a mast over, a 27-meter mast over from Europe, but the timing is so short. I think they have like 9 days to fix it, to put a new mast and to sail to Newport to be able to sail the next leg. So I think lots of stress in that team right now, and I really hope the best for them, for sure.
The 11th Hour Racing team now takes the lead on leg 4, but it's still really close with Malizia and the others. After missing out on leg 3, the team on Geo Environment, Team Europe, are giving it everything as they fight hard for every point.
I think for the next
couple of hours, for sure there's going to be a lot of tacking. So there's going to
Annie
be a
Lush.
lot of stacking. We've got to do the sails, all our equipment and our food. And and then tack. And we're going to try and sort of hug the coastline and stay on this side of the bad current. So ready for some tacks, lots of grinding the board up and down.
On the 5th day of racing, the boats are heading north and east, sailing upwind in 10 to 15 knots. It's actually dropped off since this race report. Each boat fighting for the lead and the conditions set to change. It's all to play for in leg 4 of the Ocean Race.
For us, we are going offshore, so it's better because it's less maneuver and the wind is more stable. But tonight we'll have another cloudy part, so probably again 24 hours to catch the trade winds.
In the next 36 hours, the fleet should see the wind switch to an easterly direction. They will be sailing in trade wind conditions before encountering the doldrums early next week. This is graphic. Shows, and that's, relatively how close they are. Julie, you were going to say.
Yeah, I'm impressed with all of the resilience of the boats and sailors, and of course they have to, but it.
Indeed, and you are not one to be easily impressed.
That's true.
I know from experience.
Yeah.
So that's the race report. Now here's what it looks like as they were heading, as they're motoring, but they're also jury-rigged to help a little bit with the propulsion forward. I guess these are shots they took themselves with their drone.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but they're making pretty good progress, actually. I think they're in there tomorrow into Rio. I tried to get Andrew Pindar to say something because they have said, here's another video of this Pilgrim's Progress to Rio. And maybe we'll do a little bit of a voiceover. I tried to get Andrew to, because he's been thanked by everybody for the efforts of his company for the logistics effort to try to get another rig down there. He said he can't really comment, and he won't, so he didn't. So I had to reach out to other sources, and it's a touch and go. It's really a dodgy situation to see if they can get a rig shipped to Rio. Try as I might to pry something out of Andrew, he said, "No, I've got to respect the wishes of the team and the organizing committee. So I'll keep my powder dry. And if he can let us know anything, he will. But Pindar is, of course, the logistics partner for this event. So the reason they're so hot to get not only the 1 point, but to get to Newport, of course, is that it is a double points race from Newport across to Aarhus, across the North Atlantic. They really need to be in that one.
We did a fixed point on top of this part of the mast with a big lashing around the mast, fixed point with a part of the traveler, and now we have a halyard with the outer of each outrigger. We have the rig of the mast, and we install the forestay.
Par contre, on a dit qu'on voulait une brise devant aussi, non? Parce qu'on va mettre une voile devant.
Steve Groover reminding us that if they get to Newport in time for the next start, they'll still be leading overall.
Ça tire?
Jordan Smith, we'll see how light it is for these guys going into Rio, but they're by now a long ways away from the bulk of the fleet, but it's very light where the other teams are. We'll show you Clark Chapin's latest graph in a second. They're in a gnarly hole. Wind hole. Clark saying a half hour ago, 11th hour speed was only half of a knot, 0.5 knots. Malizia is closing. This again on the boat, Olsen PRB motoring toward Rio. Okay, so here is this is about now 3.5 hours ago. I took this, maybe a little bit longer than that. As you can see, This is Wholesome PRB heading downhill toward Rio. The rest of the fleet up here, these are exclusion zones we've talked about for environmental or other reasons, safety reasons. They have to stay outside of these exclusion zones as they go up the coast of Brazil and so on. 11th hour is ahead of Team Elizia, but as Clark said, Team Elizia now closing in apparently because they are in very light conditions. Again, this is from several hours ago when Team Elizia was 5 nautical miles back. Geoenvironment 10 back and Biotherm 13, but they're all, relatively speaking, close. It's a 5,000-mile leg, a lot of race left. And Wholesome PRB, you can see here, is SUS, which means
suspended.
Right, suspended, not retired, not RET, not DSQ, disqualified, but suspended because they do hold out hope of getting a rig, getting it in the boat, and still racing for that 1 point, get up to Newport in time, then to start on 26th, is it, of May? So in a little over a month's time. That's a big ask. Now, can they get the boat, on a ship from Rio and get to New? I mean, that's hard too, because as you know, Julia, your late great husband, who was a ship captain, finding a ship that's going in that direction and is fast enough and isn't making ports of call in how many different ports between Rio and Boston or Newport or Baltimore, or wherever they would offload the boat.
Hamburg Sud.
Big ask. Jeff Waller, World on Water. Kevin, meaning Kevin Scoffia, had the sinking of his previous PRB in the last Vendée Globe when it folded like a banana and sank. Indeed. So tough bit of luck here. Tough patch for him. Clark Chapin telling us Celia is up 2-1 in the final of the women's, what's it called? The Vela Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't they just tow it with their drones, Jody?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's too far to sail it anyway. It has to be taken by.
Well, it's not that it's too far, as Steve Gruber says. Remember that it was quicker for them to sail Geoenvironment from Cape Town over to Itajaí. It was quicker for them to sail than put it on a ship.
Yeah, but those are two.
Fair enough. Not exactly a normal steamship.
Mm-hmm.
Course or path.
Even still, I mean, it's going to take 6 days at least to sail that.
Well, it'll take more than that. That lady on board Wholesome, would it be legal to hoist her bra to... Okay. That, Julia, deserves first official finger wag.
No.
Jody's testicle comment was kind of clever, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Jody, I don't know about that. Here's Clark's chart. This is as of this this afternoon, UTC, this morning, our time, on the 28th of April, the average speed that peaked there at 14 a couple days ago when Wholesome broke their rig. This is the average speed of the lead boat, but it's more or less the average speed for all the boats. And now they're down to under 4 knots, or at least they were earlier today. And now Clark says it's even slower than that. Thank you, Clark Chapin, for sending us.
Yes, Clark, those are wonderful charts.
Clark's a wonderful guy.
He is.
I talked to Clark this morning. And I'll tell you in the last segment why I talked to him.
All right.
In fact, I already have told you. That gets us to a Bravo Zulu in a very cool segment. We haven't been covering this race, but it just hasn't happened in a long time, and there weren't that many boats, and there wasn't a lot of interest from you, the Fozy, but there has been since this lady, Kirsten Neuschafer, won. And she won yesterday, the GGR. You know what GGR stands for? Not the Golden Gate Race, the Golden Globe Race. And Kirsten, who is from RSA, from the Republic of South Africa, and of whom Ted Ryman is very proud, she is the first woman to win a non-stop, a solo, round the world race.
Yes.
And bravo frigging Zulu to her. We're really proud of what she's achieved. And, we've kind of been watching out of one eye and then the other, but with everything else going on, we haven't covered it really closely. They're old boats, old technology. Not that we don't like that, as you all know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No.
We do like that here.
Yes.
Let me tell you some more about the race. This from CNN, who's just this morning had a great story about Kirsten. A legend is born. Kirsten Neuschafer becomes the first woman to win the historic Golden Globe race. Kirsten has become the first woman to win this Golden Globe race, as the headline said. Neuschafer and 15 other competitors, who were all men, set off from Sable d'Olonne, France, on September 4th with the aim of making it around the world via the 5 Great Capes before returning to the coastal town in the west of France, which she did yesterday. Entrants race solo, nonstop, and Julia, get this, in boats that are reminiscent of the golden age of solo sailing. The yachts have to be designed before 1988 and are without electronic instruments or autopilots.
I think that's wonderful.
It's a bit scary in this day and age, but it is. And she has achieved this when, again, not stop. Everybody else, fell out of bed except for 2 other sailors, I think. There's only 2 others still in the race. The race is based on the 68-69 Sunday Times, the London Times, Golden Globe race, which saw, of course, Sir Robin Knox-Johnston become the first person to circumnavigate the globe, sailing solo on his boat, Suhaili. Is that how you Suhaili? I can't remember. Without stopping. By the time the South African Neuschafer crossed the line Thursday, only 2 other sailors, of course both men, were on course to complete the race without stopping. Somebody actually finished ahead of her, but stopped somewhere along the line, Chile, or I can't remember where it was, but stopped somewhere. So bravo, Zulu. Terrific job, and thanks to Ted Ryman, who's been keeping me posted on this race. And when she, the South African, won, he said, "You got to cover this," and he's right. We're happy to cover it. And you know who else pinged me this morning?
Who?
Manon Baez, the daughter of our esteemed past Commodore and his wife.
Yeah.
Manon Blaze? Manon, that's right. And she said, "Oh, this is fantastic. You got to cover it." So we're covering it, and bravo Zulu to her. Kirsten, right? Neuschafer from South Africa. Julia, do you know what happened quickly on this day in history, 28th of April, 1789? Do you know?
The Constitution was written.
Nope. Sailing related. Not always, but I try. I try.
You do.
I try to make them say. Here's your first clue. Do you know who that is?
No.
Does he look British?
No.
He doesn't? What's he look like?
He looks French.
Some people think he was a hero. Some people think he was a crouton. Does that help?
Oh, yes.
Now, you notice I covered up the name of the boat with my little Sailing Illustrated graphic. There.
Yes. Now,
what are they saying here? Steve Atkins talking about the GGR. She identifies as the winner. Well done. Yeah, she's more than the winner. Lord Howe, nope. Bonaparte, nope.
No.
Captain, Clayton Embly's got it. Captain William Bligh, Jonathan Frankston, Benedict Arnold. Graham Sweeney's got it. Mutiny on the Bounty.
Yep.
Jody Shields said he invented the first inflatable life jacket. Menon Bays, he's on here. Yeah, thank you, Menon. So that is, of course, the Bounty, when I take away the little graphic covering it up. And as you will know, he was captain of the boat, but he was a lieutenant in rank in the Royal Navy. Lieutenant William Bligh, who lived from 1754 to 1817, was cast adrift with some of his colleagues. Do you remember the guy's name who was the other lieutenant who mutineered? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Christian Fletcher. Famous painting here by Robert Dodd of Great Britain from 1790. That is a modern replica that was made for, you know how many movies were made for this Mutiny of the Bounty since the early 1900s?
Plenty.
5, at least 5, maybe more. But that a nice replica from 1960, which was made for probably the most popular of all the movies, the MGM movie. Do you know who those stars are?
Marlon Brando.
Well done. Bly was played by. The answers are on your.
Trevor
slide.
Howard.
Yeah, Trevor Howard. And Fletcher Christian was played on the right there by Marlon Brando. The mutiny, of course, occurred in the South Pacific on the 28th of April, this day in 1789, led by Master's Mate, acting Lieutenant Fletcher Christian.
Ah, yes.
Disaffected crewmen seized control of the ship and set the then Lieutenant Bly, who was the ship's captain, and 18 loyalists adrift in the ship's open launch. The mutineers variously settled on Tahiti or on Pitcairn Island. Meanwhile, Bly completed a voyage of more than 3,500 nautical miles to the west in the launch to reach safety north of. He didn't stop in Australia. He stopped in the Dutch East Indies, today's Indonesia, and began the process of bringing the mutineers to justice. This is the chart of those voyages, and this was the original, the early path of the Bounty. They got to this Tofua. Is that how you pronounce that? You've been there, haven't you?
I have.
And that was the voyage of the Bounty to Tahiti, and the location of the mutiny on the 28th of April, 1789. And then the Bounty, they're trying to find a place to land that maybe is safe, that their Brits aren't going to come find them and, and put them to death for mutinous behavior. And that was the movements of the Bounty under Christian. They burned the boat in Pitcairn. They got to Pitcairn and said, okay, this is our place. They burned the boat. The Bounty there. I didn't know that either. But then this guy, you got to give this guy credit. You talk about we talk what everybody else on here does, including this lady, Kirsten Neuschäfer.
Yeah.
They managed to get in this open boat to Timor, Kupang. Is that how you pronounce that? Kupang? All the way over here in Indonesia, today's modern day Indonesia, between 2nd of May and the 14th of June. So, it was pretty quick. They had some current, I guess.
Yeah.
And managed to get over there. But it was on this day in history, the 28th of April, that Captain Bly, as the New York Yacht Club would have said, you've been excused from further participation.
I love that.
Well, that's what they used to do. New York would go across with their straw hats on during the trials era, defense trials era in Newport until we lost the Cup in 83. And the America's Cup Committee would go over and the teams would, oh my God, here they're coming over here. They'd maybe just lost a race late in August.
Yeah.
Here comes the committee.
Yeah.
And they'd come slowly across Newport Harbor on the boat, come to Bannister's Wharf or wherever they were tied up. They'd get off. I'm sorry to have to tell you this, whoever was being excused, but you've been excused from further participation.
It's so.
Oh, it was gentlemanly. It was,
gentlemanly. Yeah.
Or the flip side was they could be coming over to tell you that you'd won the trials if you were one of the 2 finalists. So you never knew, except you knew if you'd won the race that day or if you'd done well in the trials. Because they weren't normally races. They were starts, stops, maybe a full race, maybe not, but rarely a full race. Okay, we'd like to see some go up to the top mark and then come downhill together.
Oh, did they?
Oh, yeah. The America's Cup Committee was trialing the yachts, hence the name trials. It wasn't just racing. It wasn't objective racing.
Right.
It was subjective. And then they'd come across the harbor and say, you've been excused from further participation. Love that. Okay, the American Cup boat race. Now, there's 2 pieces of news here. And I'm leading with what I think is the most important piece of news, and that is that New York Yacht Club, in their AC40, has joined the Capsize Cup Club, not the Cup. We can call it the Capsize Cup. Maybe that's what we should start calling this, the Capsize Cup.
Yes.
And some of you, one of you, more than one of you, has suggested that we start keeping track of this because, mark my words, they get these boats, especially it doesn't matter who's sailing, the men, the women, the boys, the girls, the teams, in windy, rough conditions, which Barcelona can have and does have. Look at what the conditions were in Valencia, just down the coast.
Right.
Even though it's light, there's a lot of seaway in there. You're at the western end of the Med. There's a long fetch if it's kind of out of the east or the south. and it bounces off the breakwater. I was there for the 92 Olympics, out there bouncing around in a rubber boat as a judge and an umpire. Tell you what, it is bouncy. And you get these boats. This was New York going outside of Pensacola Bay or getting out to more in the open water.
Yeah.
And every time one of these boats gets into a rough, windy, bumpy
Yes.
condition, over they go.
Yeah.
So we need to start keeping track of this, and somebody will help us, hopefully. But this is cretonic, and these boats, especially in their fleet racing, and they're doing this in the junior and the youth and the women's America's Cups, this fleet racing could be interesting. Capsize Cup, love it. Steve Atkins.
Well, we should.
That was a slip of the tongue, Steve, but maybe it was Freudian. Julia.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to have a paper boat trophy called
the Capsize Cup.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Maura Stevenson. Hi, Maura. I question the skipper's decision. I'm not sure what that's about. No one should believe the Med is a flat pond. Exactly right, Gordon Smith. That is a spot on.
For sure.
Comment. I mean, you see what goes on up in Saint-Tropez. Even Saint-Tropez can be windy and
with
wet.
a Mistral, you'd rather not be there at all.
Well, it depends. The Mistral at least is normally off. It's coming over the land. So if you're up near the shore, it's not so bad. But is the 75 less susceptible than the 40? Well, it is, Steve. I think we know that it's less susceptible than the 40. But these 40s are, wet and wild. Jeff Waller's asking, what about the announcement in Jeddah? Well, I was hoping you'd bring that up because I think what here is big picture, long term, the more important announcement. But this announcement has horrified a lot of people. Now, Julie Ahrens, if you don't want to hear any criticism of the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron and Emirates Team New Zealand and AC-37, you can go walk the dog for a few minutes here because it's not just me. I have had a boatload of negative commentary on this decision, this announcement this morning, that the second preliminary regatta is not going to be in Spain, not going to be in Cagliari, as we've been telling you and others have been telling you. It's going to be in Jeddah, in Saudi Arabia, the Jeddah Yacht Club and Marina. This was announced this morning. This is the news we woke up to this morning after yesterday's news of the dismasting. Second AC-37 preliminary regatta to be held on the waters of the Red Sea in Jeddah. Second preliminary regatta will be held 30th of November to the 3rd of December. That's in 6 months' time, ladies and gentlemen. The only venue outside of Spain to host an America's Cup regatta during the 37th Cup cycle. The ostensible Jeddah Yacht Club, which is just a nice building on the marina there, will be the host. The announcement comes just prior. Now, this is their press release. It's not my. This is not my rant. Well, it is, but it's not. I'm not reading this. This is something I wrote. The announcement comes just prior to the AC-37 protocol deadline requiring the publication of which was extended because they couldn't come up with a second venue. Extended the deadline to the 30th of April, which of course is Sunday. Racing in one design AC-40s will happen just off the race village and the Jeddah Yacht Club adjacent to the spectacular Formula One track on Jeddah's Corniche. The event is in partnership with the Ministry of Sport, of course, and the Saudi Sailing Federation. I don't know how many boats they have, but they've got some, who have significant ambitions for the rapid growth of sailing in Saudi Arabia across many top-level sailing events and classes as part of its Vision 2030. Now, I had comments from a lot of you and others. I see nice in this press release, you'll see, and we'll read them in a moment, from Saudi officials, from the Saudi Sailing Federation, and David Graham of World Sailing chimed in and said nice things too. But there is not a single, in the past, whenever they've made an announcement like this, they've dragged quotes or gotten quotes, or the teams have volunteered quotes. I'm not sure which, and they've had quotes in this release from the teams. Not today. We continue. There is the only sailing picture that was published with the press release. And those are Ilka's knee lasers, obviously to start. And Hassan Kabani, I'd like to get him on the show, chairman of the Saudi Sailing Federation, the shall it dare I say, the Alistair Murray of Saudi Arabia. How's that, Alistair? We welcome the America's Cup organization and sailors from around the world to Saudi Arabia and to Jeddah. It is an honor to be selected to host an America's Cup preliminary regatta and to be able to showcase to the sailing community the wonderful conditions we have, which, by the way, Andrew Pindar tells me the conditions are quite good. Not always, but they're quite reasonably good for sailing. So Pindar says. I can assure everyone, I thought this was a great turn of phrase. We can assure everyone of a warm... Did you like that?
Yes.
A warm welcome. Come on, Julie, that was funny, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it was heartfelt.
Heartfelt. There was another paragraph here, wasn't there? Yeah, the America's Cup Preliminary Regatta will help us accelerate the growth of sailing in Saudi Arabia, I hope. We will use it to kickstart a number of new initiatives, including a Discover Sailing program to encourage people onto the water and a performance pathway for talented sailors to train to compete at the top level. One can only hope. Now, this lady apparently is a very competent lady. She is the CEO of the Saudi Sailing Federation, Samia Baghdadi, I guess, and is obviously a laser sailor, also a kiter. Sailing, she says, is in its infancy at the moment, but the potential is huge with 9 million people living on the Red Sea coast and fantastic sailing conditions all year round. The America's Cup and the exciting foiling AC40s racing with the world's best sailors is the perfect catalyst to inspire our people towards sailing and widen access to the Red Sea, which has always been an important part of Saudi Arabia's history and heritage and is integral to Saudi's sustainable future. We want to bring the joy and excitement of sailing to Saudi's young and old. Great, good. Anything we can do to help, let us know. And one day see an Olympic, ocean race, or an America's Cup champion representing our country. That's a real ambition, says the CEO of the Saudi Sailing Federation. She went on to say, this is one of the fastest growing sports markets in the world. Witness LIV, Live Golf, in that new Pro Tour, and has a maritime heritage that is ready to be reignited for all Saudi women and men. They're still wearing burqas on the beach, by the way. Explained Samia Baghdadi, CEO of the Saudi Sailing Federation, a kite surfer and sailor herself. And yes, they did release a video, and of course we have it. You see, Stingray did say 23. When that video first came out, they had through December of 2024, which, of course, is not correct. So coming to, if you're living in Jeddah or that part of the world, coming to a marina near you, 30th of December through the 3rd of December, the second AC preliminary regatta. Now, why this regatta is not in Colliery, why this regatta is not in Pensacola, or in Newport, Rhode Island for that matter, or in you know, wherever the Brits wanted to have it. They're training, of course, in Palma, but they could have been anywhere. You know why? You know why? We all know why.
Money.
Follow the money, right? Follow the follow the money. And I don't know what they've paid, but no doubt it's a lot. And before I go to your comments, I'm going to go to some comments I had this morning. Now, do you know who this is, Julia? Do you recognize the gentleman? He is a Fozy. He's been on the show.
No.
He is also an esteemed photographer, marine photographer and otherwise.
Yeah.
This now is maybe what you will more likely recognize him. That is our Fozy Graham Sweeney.
Oh, Sweeney.
Yeah. That's Graham.
Right.
In Yell, in Scotland. Yeah, Ted Ryman got it. He knew right away it was Sweeney. And Gordon Smith knew it was Sweeney. Well, I got a text from him this morning. He said, and I quote, ETN, and I asked him if I could run this on the show, and he said, by all means. He said, even if I get a finger wag from Julia. Oops, that's not Julia. That's Chris Poole. Hi, Chris. He's no longer with us. At least he's not. I mean, via Skype, I'm sure he's still with us.
Yeah.
ETNZ have run off with the trophy in order to make the event a pay-per-view F1 style event to rival Ellison. I believe this is outside the spirit of the Cup. I may be old-fashioned and a little nostalgic about that great America's Cup sailing history. I admit it. But where we are now compared to then is not in the slightest where I thought we would. This is a great sentence. Where I thought we would be. So much of the sport has been torn up for these three-legged, cycle-powered ironing boards.
Oh,
I dare this event. I declare this event Croutonic. And now Jeddah. Really? Does Mr. Dalton need the money that badly? Really? Julia.
The prose is perfect.
That was quite a statement.
Yeah.
Huh? From our Fozy. You know, I'm based on that, and he makes many contributions here to every show.
Right.
I'm gonna upgrade him to Super Fozy.
Okay.
Okay.
Good idea.
But wait, there's more. He came back with this one, which is going to stick. He said it's $1 million cockfight has developed into devolved. Thank you, Julia. Has devolved into a 2-cent turkey shoot.
I as I said, I love the prose.
A 2-cent turkey shoot. Now I hope Julie's, if she wait, still don't come back yet, Julie. She'll get upset with my next slide. But look at all the hearts and the thumbs up and the smileys, the emojis. Look at all of them coming off. A 2-cent turkey shoot. Now, I don't know, that's not necessarily, remember, our Fozy and all of you who comment are not necessarily the views of this channel or of either Julia or myself. Let's see. Stingray, agree with Sweeney. It can't be all about venue fees. Ed Worley, he is correct. I was going to run this as correct or Croutonic, but I didn't think that was fair because we knew. Monday, money talks, human rights walks, Clayton Allen Embley says. How will they handle prayer time when everything stops? A few OD-40s, yawn. Baghdaddy sounds like a toy boy. Who carries your sailing kit? Graham Sweeney got that one right there. Yeah. Any sail GP event will outsell this thing on TV. Stingray is absolutely right. Jody, do you see Jody's comment? I think we've lost it on the screen. Jody says, I've just put that statement, what I've just been reading you, through Google Translate, and we are very happy that we had a quote, and it comes back, we are very happy that we have paid big dollars to attract the America's Cup into our area. Oh, dear. Any other comments? Julie Aarons, I'm not mad at anybody. This was a foregone conclusion. Yeah, Julie told me some time ago she thought it was going to be in Saudi Arabia. So did a couple other folks who asked me not to name them. They told me a week or two ago, and I did. So much for the Corinthian spirit in the cup, Ed Worley is saying. Now, there's a rumor out there, and the 2-cent turkeys. Graham, our new super Fozy. We gotta elevate him, don't you think, Julia?
Yep. Well, he's earned it.
Now, you know who that is? That is the late Washington Post journalist,
Khashoggi.
Saudi, Jamal Khashoggi. There is no truth to the rumor that this event in Saudi Arabia will be called the Khashoggi Cup. Okay?
Yeah.
No, that was being spread around this morning. It was being asked in certain fora. Fora, that's a good plural. Not forums.
Fora.
Fora.
Not flora.
Not flora.
Fora.
The Khashoggi Cup. Ed Worley, that, sir, is an excellent point. What was Worley's point? I missed it. Follow the money, Jay Frederick. Bloomer Bland is saying, absolutely right. Julie is correct, but what do I know about I got pneumonia? Oh, you do, Joe? Oh, man, I hope that is not too bad. Great screenshot of Graham. Ed Worley's okay.
Yeah.
Well, Graham Sweeney, he sent me a few photos, and I went with him. So that's the America's Cup news today. I won't say any more than what we've already said. You know what I think about this. I'm appalled. And I've reached out to the teams to ask for their views. None would say much more than no comment. You know, if they were wildly enthusiastic, they would have said it in the press release. If they're not amused, which I can guarantee you, at least 3 of them are seriously not amused. I haven't talked to all 4. But what is this? What to show me? What did replying to Ed Worley? Excuse me, but when was there ever been a Corinthian spirit in the cup? Okay, Steve Gruber, fair enough, but there's a difference. There's a difference between Corinthianism on the teams and then having a proper regatta, I think. So what will happen to the media who criticize the event? Ed Worley is, oh dear. Stingray, nobody except Mr. Dalton and Matteo Denora want this damn thing. Jody is saying it's going to be called the Show Me the Money Cup.
Oh.
No, the teams will not contest the decision because they don't have any choice. I mean, this is in 6 months' time. They got to. This is unbelievable. Okay, I'm going to change the topic, Julia. Unless you've got anything else on this. Steve Atkins, look what he said. You can shake your finger at him. Heads will roll. Fly Emirates. Andrew Dolly DeVoe. Okay, now I hope it's a terrific regatta. I hope everything goes well. I hope they have a good television audience for the sake of our sport. I hope the conditions are nice. I mean, the first time we went to Dubai, Dubai is a different kettle of fish, no pun intended. First time we went to Dubai many years ago, 30 years ago, to sail, judge. And I've been there, I don't know, a handful of times, have meetings. SailGP was, or not the SailGP, but one of those America's Cup preliminary regattas, the Louis Vuitton something or another. A nice place to sail. We'll see about Saudi Arabia. Okay, this is I did correct a Croutonic, not because I think the topic is Croutonic, but we're going to argue, I'm sure some of us will, about how to go forward and whether to go forward on this next issue, which is the so-called Dear Men of Sailing letter that appeared a few days back, maybe Monday, in Scuttlebutt. And I'm only going to open with a few paragraphs of it. Many of you have seen it, and I've been talking at length with Rick Bannerow and Alistair Murray about how to proceed, and we're going to put this to all of you on how to proceed, if at all. But we have some ideas, and then bounce it off you in a moment. But this was a letter published in Scuttlebutt on the 24th, so 4 days ago. And Craig Lewick, the owner of Scuttlebutt, said, "We don't typically publish anonymous reports, but made an exception for this startling story." And she writes, "I had a fantastic time sailing at the 2023 Etchells Worlds in Miami, which wrapped up this past weekend. The level of talent is unmatched, and as a woman, it was also equally fantastic to see so many fellow ladies competing at an elite level. The story of women's involvement in highly competitive sailing has been told. There are too few of us, but the numbers are improving, and that brings me so much joy!" Exclamation point. "But let me tell you about what happened as soon as the regatta was over. It's quite the opposite of joyful. As soon as I wasn't seen as an equal competitor anymore, no more deck beaters, I don't quite know what that meant, but topsiders or
Yeah, probably.
shoes, team shirts, zinc white face. I apparently became an object. I rarely dress up because I'm just not that kind of girl, but I certainly like to on occasion, and I figured World Championship Awards party was such an occasion. I traded my Patagonia shorts for a skirt and sunblock block for mascara. It's fun to look pretty, but apparently that meant I was no longer your equal, but your prey. No less than a half a dozen men, she says, harassed me beginning at the awards dinner and continually throughout the evening up until I had to fight past one just to get home. I knew some of them, but not well. We certainly weren't friends. Others I didn't know at all. One picked me up, literally, because yes, as a petite woman, it's amusing to lift me up like Simba. Remember Simba in The Lion King, I guess. And yes, I played along, even pretended to enjoy it, because as a petite woman, saying no to a man 3 times my size is infinitely scarier than anything I could ever encounter on the race course, and I've been on the bow in some gnarly breeze. But this particular antic happens to me at least once a year. It's sad that I'm so blasé about it at this point. I shouldn't be. I should hold firmer when they blatantly grab my chest or butt while, quote, testing their strength, unquote. But that was just the beginning. Later in the evening, one man said to my face, quote, I wish I could bang you right now, unquote. I said I had a boyfriend and walked away. That letter goes on. Any of you can go to Scuttlebutt and see it and read it. It's disturbing. And it would be particularly disturbing if she had signed it, which she didn't. It was anonymous. And there's what I have a problem with. I've discussed this at length with Alistair, who wrote me, and with Rick Banera, who also wrote about it. And we all three are very concerned about this happening in our sport. We, all three of us, don't doubt that it does happen. But we also have to wonder, why didn't somebody protest? Why, Noel, do the rules apply after the regatta at the press? Yes, they do. Why didn't somebody write up a report and deal with this and come clean and say, this happened to me, I'm so-and-so? And a lot of pushback saying, you can't do that, because if you do, you're going to be shunned, you're going to be pushed aside, you'll never be asked to go out to, you're shaking your head yes.
I think that's true, unfortunately.
And they asked me, we had a late night email back and forth with Rick and Alistair trying to decide how we should approach this on this show, and I appreciate their guidance very much. And they said, well, maybe you should get Julia to lead a discussion on this. And I said, well, Julia, I know Julia pretty well. Her attitude will be, yeah, this is terrible, like all of our attitude is. But she'll say, you know what, if it had been me, Julia, and tell me if I'm wrong, I'm putting words now in your mouth, but this is what I told these guys last night. I said, where Julia, she'd just kind of stand there and laugh at them, take it, laugh at them, and say, stop, don't.
You got to be kidding, guys.
Yeah, you got to be kidding. Yeah. I wouldn't. Right. Do it again.
You got to be kidding. With you? Oh, God.
And you just laugh at them and then walk away. And we talked about another woman who we know well, who's been on the show a number of times. And I said, well, that lady would, and that's how Julia would respond. And I was 100% right.
Yeah.
And another lady we talked about, I won't name her because I haven't had a chance to talk to her, but she would have beaten the pulp out of these guys.
Oh, yeah.
With one hand tied behind her.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, that doesn't make any of this right. I don't doubt for a minute that this stuff happens, that it even happened at the Etchells, but it disturbs me a lot, as I told Alistair and Rick, that this is anonymous. I could, and again,
it's hard to.
So go ahead.
No, I mean, it's really hard.
I understand. And don't think I haven't been harassed as a kid or bullied or something somewhere along the line as well. But Julia, again, it's hard for me to say this because I'm going to be accused now of being a sexist or misogynist. So I could write a letter, equally good or worse, not sign it, impugning you or the Beach Street Yacht Club or the Etchells class or the St. Francis Yacht Club or anybody, get it published, and everybody would say, oh, that's terrible, But, that's really irresponsible, and I do believe in the jurisprudence of our sport and of the Western world, where you say, hey, this is what happened. Here's my name on the bottom. Here are and okay, I understand not naming names. Okay? I can understand not naming names. I can understand saying, You know who you were, you croutons. You know who you were. I know who you were, and other people there know who you were. Don't do it again. And women and leaders of our sport, men, women, and otherwise, we got to stop this. Sailing Illustrated, you got to help us stop this, and we're all on board with that. But I don't like reacting to anonymous letters. I'm sorry.
No.
You agree with me on that point?
I do. It's hard.
It's hard. So that's where we are. And as I said, I've had a long back and forth with very thoughtful input from Rick, who brought it up, Rick Manero, who's a fairly new Fozy. I mean, he's been watching the show, but he's really become quite active and engaged. And Rick, we appreciate that. He's on here now, or he was. And also Alistair Murray, who's been sailing with women, with his wife, with his daughters. And of course, he's the president of the Australian Sailing Federation. And he put my reaction to his board the other night. And the board said, no, we disagree with Tom, that anonymity is sometimes the necessary way to deal with this. And he pushed back on me in an email exchange we've had.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. But I still don't like it. But what he's come up with his board, and then I'll ask you to comment. He's come up with his board that they're going to the summits of all the Australian state sailing federations. And they're going to message this and say, look, we don't know if this happened for sure or not, but we don't doubt that it does happen in our sport, and it's got to stop. And it's not just the women speaking up. It's got to be the men who, when they see this happening, have got to intervene and help. Or if it's it could be the reverse. If somebody else, if a man's being bullied for some reason by somebody, you got to stop. You got to intervene. Just like I said to Alistair and to Rick last night on the email, I said, if we're at the club and we see one of our fellow sailors, a male or female, who's full drunken, as the Germans would say, out in the parking lot about to get in their car, you got to go out and say, excuse me. You can't drive. You stop, we'll get you an Uber, we'll drive you home, but you got to intervene, because that person could hurt themselves, or worse yet, hurt somebody else, and really ruin the reputation of the club, the sport, and so on. So that's a perennial problem, but you got to intervene.
Yep.
And I think we all have to intervene. And so that you go ahead, you react.
No. I mean, I was just thinking, I was berating myself lately for not stepping up and speaking out to things I really disagree with, and just don't say anything, because
on the political front here in the U.S.
Yeah, because it it causes more problems sometimes than
by not speaking up.
But yeah,
well, true. Let's go to the comments. And the point of raising all this is that we want your feedback on how should we, as a somewhat influential organ, no pun intended. You can shake your finger at me. I mean, that's a good word.
Yep.
How should we proceed here? And I've got an idea, and we'll see what you all think. Drunken sailors are inappropriate. What's new? Steve Atkins said, yep. On another matter, Celia won the final, 3-1. Okay, thanks, Clark Chapin.
Good.
That's some good news to intervene here. Bravo Zulu to Celia. Was it Celia Wilson, right? Is that her name? James Bland is saying, file a Rule 69 complaint or a safe sport complaint. I agree, James. You got to act. You got to file. And I understand it's tough. I understand but if you believe in yourself and what happened, you should take action, and people should support it. The Etchells class Steve Gruber is saying, the Etchells class is taking it seriously. And and to their credit, they issued Julia a statement. I didn't put it in here, but they issued a statement the next, a day, maybe 2 days after that, showed up in Scuttlebutt, I guess Monday night. And they have opened an investigation.
Oh, that's good.
And I did see, I went into some of the Sailing Anarchy forums and looked around. There's a lot of people who are, upset, needless to say, and should be, as are we. There are a lot of people who agree with me. Hey, don't put up or shut up. I mean, file a protest, act, don't do stuff anonymously. And there was one guy who I even find even more despicable. I mean, this person I understand. I'm assuming it happened, and I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. But there was a guy in the forums who said, I was at the after party. The party moved around and people flittered from here and there. I was at the house party, the after party, and I saw this happening, and I didn't do anything. And I now regret that and feel bad. And I should have,
Mm-hmm.
I should have. And that person is a major crouton.
Yeah.
Right.
The other thing that sort of flips through my mind is this is nothing new.
Fair enough.
And we haven't been very good at addressing it. But there are more channels and willingness to do so now than there has been.
I hope so. Julie Ahrens is saying, she's saying, a woman today doesn't want to give her name. These kinds of things have been tried with me. Not anyone who knows me well knows that anyone who knows me well knows that I would not put up with this. Where were the observers? Exactly right. I agree with you, Julie Ahrens. And I understand why the lady doesn't want to give her name, but at some point we got to stand up and be counted, all of us, not just the lady involved. Gordon Smith, Scuttlebutt are responsible for the veracity of what they publish. However, if the story letter is genuine, it is a dreadful experience. Totally agree. Here in Denmark, I cannot conceive of this taking place at all. A total lack of respect for the individual. Good point, Gordon. Mm-hmm. Of course, the concern is it wouldn't happen at all without alcohol, probably. So, end of the regatta, serious. Clark Chapin, the purpose of the letter was not to impugn the Etchells class. This could have happened anywhere.
Yes.
The purpose of the letter was to flip over the rock and expose the vermin underneath. Thanks, Clark. I totally agree. It is hearsay if you don't. See, I agree with Clayton. It's hearsay if you don't sign it. I think she would get a lot of support if she came forward. A lot, even she'd get a lot more support, Clayton. I agree. Steve Gruber, I know there are no names here, but are you attacking the possible victim? No, I'm not. I'm not. I know this happens. We all know this happens. We've got to stop it, but we also have to be aware. We have to be aware of the whole situation in the bigger picture. Joe Holtzman's agreeing with me. It's totally disgusting, but by the same token, I think he thinks you got to come out and put it out publicly. And Julie Ahrens, I think we all agree with you. I find this much more disturbing than the fact that the AC race will be in Jeddah. That's a whole other topic. Let's not get into that. In any event, Clark Chapin, who's a judge, says if the awards dinner occurred at the regatta venue, some folks were coming perilously close to a Rule 69 action, but people are always hesitant to start to swing that axe. My wife, Ted Ryman, you want to read that? You see Ryman's comment?
No.
Well, we need Jody on here to read that. My wife would have smacked him in the cojones.
Yep. So would the lady.
Okay, so look, everybody, I don't know what the answer is. As far as what the sport should do, I don't want to dwell on this too much longer here today because we're already 2 hours and 23 minutes into this show, aren't we? Yeah, it is. It's almost 3:30, almost 15:30 here in San Francisco. So thank you all. There are a lot of people on here still. Thank you for bearing with us. I put it to you for come back, not just now, but send myself or Rick Bannerot. They're all in the Facebook stuff. Rick Bannerot or Alistair Murray, you all know, if you don't also know Rick. Send us your thoughts. Julia, myself, we'll all be looking in. But I have the idea that we put, and we should take a lead here, Julia, I think. And we should make an effort to get a moderator separate from us so I can push the buttons and not have to moderate it at the same time. Get a moderator and do a Zoom panel and ask anybody who wants to come on and talk about this and discuss both the due process issues as well as then, let's just assume this happened. And how should we react? And are the rules adequate to deal with this sort of stuff after the prize giving outside of the club? Do we want the racing rules to deal with this, or safe sport rules, or should she filed a complaint? And what about the other croutons standing around? And just discuss it on a panel discussion in a future show. Get Rick and Alistair on that panel as well. What do you think of that?
A good idea.
What do the rest of you think of that? Wingrove is, hi, Bill. RJ 24 team, 3 men, 2 women hang out together instead of going to large parties. I'm sure in a strange location, the ladies get hit on to a certain extent. We enjoy our company, and it makes us free to do as we are all done, as we please until we are all done. then get ready for the next day or the trip home.
Yep.
I think Clayton likes our idea of a panel discussion moderated by somebody who's a top, ideally female sailor, and get some men and women on here. But in particular, I add again my thanks to both to Alistair Murray and I'm just reading through comments here at the same time as I'm talking, as usual.
Mm-hmm.
Alistair Murray and to Rick Bannerow for their thoughtful emails over the last, particularly 24 hours, but the last 72 or so hours. Definitely not new, but alcohol not necessarily there. You have a daughter. Would you waste her and would you want her endangered herself by revealing her name? Yeah, I actually. I don't want to go into any other bullying that any of us have had. Excuse my old back. I got to adjust it.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, we as a sport have got to clamp down on this. And I think the way to clamp down on us is for people to start going public, and for us to support them when they go public, and for people in the instant case. And I'm not impugning the Etchells class either, because we all know it happens at all too often at all too many clubs and classes and events. Jody Shields has always got a testicular comment. My advice to any ladies, and of course he's happily married for a long time and daughters, and my advice to any ladies this happens to punch him in the testicles and make him cry in front of his tough mates. Game over. Flirting is fun. Jetta is not. Singer. Okay. What about Dawn Riley helping out? I think Dawn would help out. And I have not spoken to her about this recently, but I have talked to her about this broader topic. And again, you remember a few years ago, and I'm pretty sure this did not get buried, but a few years ago, there was an accusation of a rape, Julia,
Mm-hmm.
at the Collegiate Nationals in this country. A rape.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was all a Twitter and flitter, and I won't name where or who, because I finally looked into it myself when it appeared to me that the Intercollegiate Sailing Association was not going to do anything further about it. Well, it turns out there was some smoke, but there was no fire.
Mm.
And yeah, alcohol was involved on all sides, and there was some stuff, and yada yada. It turned out not to be perfectly.
Yeah.
What we and others thought it might be. It was apparently not rape. You also remember the David Witt situation in the previous round the world race, the Volvo, when he and his team were accused of some pretty awful stuff by a crew member. World Sailing did a big investigation, and it turned out to be not such a big deal. Now, part of that is, I know you're right. The people who are being bullied, who are being accused, who are on the suffering end of this stuff, don't want to make a deal out of it. So therein lies the rub. That's the thing therein lies the problem we have to solve somehow.
And the other thing is that it's also fun to sail and work with members of the opposite sex, and I wouldn't want to, ruin that open-mindedness.
Absolutely. But you should be able to go sail and go party afterwards and not feel like you're going to get fondled or otherwise, even if it's not physical abuse, if it's it's mental, verbal abuse. Mm-hmm. I am sure Andrew DeVola is saying, I'm sure many attractive female sailors could tell similar stories, and it's 2023. It's not acceptable. I think, Andrew, we all agree with that. And Clayton Emily saying, do that to my daughter, and you have endangered yourself.
No.
Well, I'd like to think, and part of my job in the Long America's Cup was when we were at these events. One of mine, a couple other guys, my job was to stay sober when everyone else was drinking. Mm-hmm. Maybe to drink when everyone else was sober. I'm not sure, Julia. But you got to look out after your teammates, and you got to look out after each other. Where were her teammates? And maybe it was her teammates who were abusing her.
Yeah, I thought that before, because teammates always defend you, and even if they weren't thinking about it, you'd say, "Hey, Charlie," you know.
Exactly. Okay, enough of this. Gordon Smith has made an excellent comment. Someone from the Magenta Project should take part in the panel discussion. Andrew Pindar might be able to find a participant. But I go back to what Alistair wrote when he and Rick and I were emailing last night late. You asked me why I didn't. Why I got up this morning. I got up early this morning, but we were emailing. I'll copy you now on those emails, Julia.
Okay.
That the three of us traded, and I think Alistair's approach is right. We can talk about it. We can jawbone it here, and we will. But I think Alistair's point is correct. He's going as the president of Australian Sailing to the state federations, and they're going to message this intensely, saying, "Hey,
that is the
right?
best way to do that."
And we should all be messaging this. And I'm glad Scuttlebutt ran this letter. I really am. But I also don't like anonymous accusations because it can be, taken so far out of context. So let's message it. Doesn't matter. Forget about that letter. We cannot, and we know what happens. This day and age in our sport, Julia, we can't let this go on, and we got to stop it, whether it's, whether it's female abuse or beating up on other people for any other reason, male, female, or otherwise. Bill Wingrove, I reserve judgment in these situations until all the details come out. Yeah, that's kind of the way I am, Bill. It is something to tread lightly with. It is, if false, then shame on the accuser. If try, then string them up. Yeah, if true, I think he means if true, then string them up. Mm-hmm. But we need to have resolution on all fronts. Yeah, totally agree. Everyone, I have to go. You all stay safe and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Ken Saban in Toledo, Ohio. The elevator repairman, was he up and down? Stingray. Julia.
Oh, he was steady.
Jonathan Frank saying, just be honorable, everyone. Thanks, Jonathan, for your contribution at the top of this show. In the A block, actually, we had you on because of International Jazz Day on Sunday. This gets us to the last leg. And I've got just a brief but really cool video I want to show you because it's from one of the most beautiful venues in the world. Do you recognize that lake on the right and that pin on the map? That is Lago di Garda, slightly north and east of Milano. And, of course, Meg went to school in Lugano, which is approximately, I go to Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor is a nice town, Julie. You go to Palo Alto, that's a nice town. But Meg goes to Lugano here in Lago di Lugano. This is Lago di Como. And she goes over here for 4 years to Franklin University. She is obviously smarter than I am to get to go there to school. But this Garda Lake here over to the right, I can't point to it anymore, has just had and is in the midst of having the 5.5 Alpine Cup, the Alpine Cup, and they have released just a fabulous video. I got to show it to you.
We just bought GBR 43 here. We've only sailed it a couple of times in Cowes. It's a hull shifter ship to 42 with a few little tweaks on the rig and the keel and obviously the rudder. Coming out the blocks today in race 1, we were in good shape. We led all the way around and won the race. And in race 2, we were leading. Had a good lead at the first mark, and then on the first run, the rudder just snapped off and we turned inside out. So that's the end of the day and the end of the regatta for us. But pretty pleased with the boat. On day 1, we felt comfortable all the time. Upwind, we were fast, and downwind, we were fast. So it always helps when you've got a little bit of a pace edge on the others. Disappointing, obviously, especially as today's my 70th birthday, but there you go. That's sailing.
Actually, it was a beautiful day. Everything went beautiful from the morning, except the temperature. The water is very cold. We could see still some snow on the mountains, and I think it's when it's coming down, the temperature is very close to the ice. But really good 3 races. Well done for the race committee. We started on time. Not much breaks in between the races, so that makes us feeling better with this temperature, and also about the equipment, because there is quite a lot of wind here in the Garda Lake. We had quite a big battles in front of the fleet. We enjoy racing. Great sailors from Great Britain got a very fast boat.
Right.
and it's,
Helps if I turn the mics on.
easy.
When Mateus Kuznarevich is there, you know it's a big deal. It's the 5.5 Alpine Cup. And just fabulous sailing conditions. That lake is, if you haven't been, even if you have been, and you get a chance to go, I see Steve Dewar made a comment that his kid's been in, what did he say? My kid's been invited?
To an open skiff.
The open skiff clinic held there. And here's Flavio Marazzi, who's another terrific sailor. I won't bore you the rest of this video, but what a fabulous event. I wish I were there. And he is a member of the Gestad Yacht Club.
Oh, good.
You see that on his breast? Go ahead.
I had the pleasure of spending part of 2 summers on Garda, and it was fabulous.
Yep. There's one other, back on that other comment. Steve Gruber, I think we agree. I don't think it matters if the letter's true or not. No one was blamed, and the author is anonymous. What if we considered an essay regarding the sexism in our sport? I can't prove it wrong. Yeah, I agree. I'm sure that goes on in our sport. I'm sure we need to deal with it, but I don't want to go back to that anymore. We're wrapping the show up with some great news here at the end. By the way, as we say here in the finish line, here in San Francisco, next weekend, the 6th to the 7th of May, Sail GP Season 3 wraps up with the grand final here. And looks like these 2 teams are going to fight it out. However, maybe the more interesting here in the regatta, San Francisco, is whether France or Emirates GBR get through. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say Emirates GBR after Britannia and Sail Team GBR, and now they're Emirates. But Sir Ben's team, whether they or Quentin Delapierre's team capture the 3rd place and get through to that final $1 million race, because it looks like Australia and New Zealand will get through. In fact, they certainly will. And we'll be watching that here in San Francisco. I'll be doing the commentary at St. Francis Yacht Club for their members, and they're going to apparently hook the club up, and so you can hear it whether you're up on the race deck or down, Julia, where you're going to be.
Yes.
You're going to watch that in the grill room?
Yeah.
Close to the bar?
Yes, of course.
Of course. That's next weekend. We're looking forward to having Sail GP here. Finally, on Sunday, do you know who that is? Julia?
Oh, your dad.
That is my dad. Tom Sr. turns 90 this Sunday on the 30th of April, and they're going to have a little bit of a reception for him. Clark, I was telling you why Clark, he told me this morning. Little reception for my dad for an hour, because he does not like funerals and he does not like birthdays. Never has, never, but they're going to, one of my brothers and one of my sisters going to throw a little party for him at the Portage Yacht Club. We wish him, obviously my beloved father, a happy 90th. He's going strong. He works, I'm not kidding, all day, every day. He runs the family business. Mm-hmm. And he's going strong. He invented the 720 rule. That's not me saying that. That's what Dick Rose up in Seattle has said. Mm-hmm. And he and Brian Willis and Dick Rose are all good friends and rules mavens, as Clark Chapin will tell you. Happy birthday, Dad. This Sunday turns 90. Julia, that gets us to the end. Thank goodness. This is 2 hours, almost 40 minutes, the finish line. But, of course, we always have some funnies at the end, don't we?
Yes.
Turn the volume up a little bit on that theme music. Worley sent this first one. It is yachting related. Instructions said to test run the outboard, test run the engine in a barrel before installing a boat. Not sure why. It was funny. Ed Worley sent that. Fabulous.
Yeah.
Now, my favorite, I don't know what your favorite Star Trek was, but Next Generation was my favorite. You've never, Captain, what was his name, Jean-Luc Picard, saying to Jonathan Frakes, who played his first officer, you've never seen The Hunt for Red October? And Jonathan Frakes, his off-sider was I don't remember his screen name. I don't like movies with subtitles. Stupid, but funny. Graham Sweeney sent that. Graham was a big contributor to today's show.
Yes.
Did you like Hunt for Red October?
Yeah.
My favorite movie. Not only do I like that Star Trek, but I like Hunt for Red October. Graham also sent this, and Julia, This is what I do every Thursday.
Yeah,
so
pulling
I
them.
can relate to this.
Yes.
Right? Age
Right.
15, age 25, and then these days, my only wheelie is to wheel a garbage can out to the curb on Wednesday nights or Thursday mornings. Julia, this is, I'm sure, dedicated to us also.
Mm.
This also from Sweeney, saying why you shouldn't wait until retirement to travel. That's how I feel after one of these shows. I have to put my feet up and take a nap, as Julie Aarons knows, and others. Okay, everybody, thank you very much. 2 hours and 40 bloody minutes, a long show, but a lot to cover, a lot going on, serious topics and not so serious topics, and a fabulous, Julia, a fabulous guest.
Yes.
He was great.
He was good.
Your witness.
Take this opportunity to like, follow, and share. And remember, sharing reaches out, and following lets you.
You only have to say like, follow, and share.
It's so boring just to say that all the time.
I always say, comments are welcome even in replay. And if you would please become a patron. This is viewer-supported media. Patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated helps keep us on the air, pay our cable bills, and my exorbitant rent to my landlady.
Which is overdue. Never mind.
Is it? I thought I was right on time.
Well,
go ahead.
No, that's not quite the 10th of the month yet.
Oh,
yeah.
it isn't. It's the 10th. I thought it was due on the 1st, and it's not even the 1st. Do help us. Give us a few bucks a month if you're so inclined. Thank you to everybody who gave us audio, video, and images for today's show. Julia, final thoughts.
Today's show was fun because it went all kinds of topics back and forth and around, and it just shows how wonderful our Fosies are.
Our Fosie are wonderful. You said it well. Great show. Thanks, Ted Ryman. Andy Armstrong, new name. Hi, Andy. Thank you. See you later, alligators. Thank you, Jody Shields. Another good show, and nice start to the weekend. Have a great weekend wherever in the world you are. See you on Tuesday for the next one. Well, the slide says Friday. I got to talk to my graphics department, Jody. See you on Tuesday. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.